The air was thick with tension as we sat around the dinner table. Dad had insisted on having a family night, which usually meant he had something on his mind. I glanced at Leo, my husband, who seemed just as uneasy as I was. "So how's the shop doing?" Dad asked, his tone already carrying a hint of condescension. Leo cleared his throat. "It's been a little slow lately, but we're managing." Dad let out a dismissive snort. "Figures. You never did have the business acumen your brother had." I felt Leo tense beside me, his jaw clenching. Here we go again. "Gregory, that's enough," I said, trying to defuse the situation before it escalated. But Dad wasn't done. "If only you'd listened to me and taken that management job instead of chasing your little auto dream." He shook his head, his eyes narrowing. "Your brother would have known what to do." Leo slammed his fist on the table, making the plates rattle. "Don't bring Tim into this." "I'm just stating facts," Dad shot back. He was the smart one, the one with a real future. "Screw you, old man," Leo shouted, his face flushed with anger. "I'm sick of living in Tim's shadow." The kids stared wide-eyed, their food forgotten. I reached for Leo's hand, trying to calm him down, but he jerked away. "At least he didn't waste his potential like you," Dad sneered. "Maybe if you'd inherited his drive, you wouldn't be struggling to keep that rust bucket of a shop afloat." That did it. Leo shot up from his chair, his hands trembling. "You know what? I'm done. I've had it with your constant belittling and favoritism. Tim's gone, and it's time you accepted that I'm not him." Dad rose to his feet as well, his eyes blazing with fury. "How dare you speak to me like that, after everything I've done for this family?" "Everything you've done?" Leo let out a bitter laugh. "You mean like constantly reminding us how much of a disappointment I am? Thanks, but no thanks." I stood up, trying to intervene. "Guys, please, let's just—" But they were too fond, exchanging insults and accusations that cut deeper with each passing moment. As their voices rose, echoing off the walls, I realized this was more than just another argument. This was a breaking point, a long simmering resentment finally boiling over. And in that moment, I knew our family would never be the same. A few days had passed since the explosive dinner, and an uneasy silence had settled over our home. Leo and I treaded carefully around each other, both of us still reeling from the fallout with Dad. I was in the kitchen, absent-mindedly scrubbing dishes, when the doorbell rang. Drying my hands, I made my way to the front door and peered through the peephole. It was Dad. I steeled myself and opened the door, bracing for another confrontation. "What do you want?" Dad's expression was uncharacteristically somber. "We need to talk." "I don't think there's anything left to say," I replied coolly. "You made your feelings pretty clear the other night." He sighed, running a hand through his thinning gray hair. "I know, and I'm sorry for how I acted, but I have a proposal that could help us all." I crossed my arms, skeptical. "I'm listening." "With your mother gone, it gets lonely living by myself," he began. "And with Leo's shop struggling, I thought perhaps I could move in and lend a hand. Financially." I blinked, taken aback. "You want to move in? And give us money?" "Think about it," he pressed. "With my savings, I could help Leo get that loan he's been after. Get the shop back on its feet." It was a tempting offer. Money had been tight lately, and Leo's business was hanging by a thread. But after the way Dad had treated him, I wasn't sure if we could trust his motives. "I don't know, Dad," I said hesitantly. "After everything that's happened, how can we be sure this isn't just another way for you to meddle and criticize us?" He held up his hands. "I give you my word, no strings attached. This is a fresh start for all of us." I studied his face, searching for any hints of deception. Part of me wanted to believe him, but another part couldn't help but feel uneasy. "Let me talk to Leo about it," I said finally. "We'll think it over and let you know." Dad nodded, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Of course. Just remember, I'm not getting any younger, and I want a chance to make things right before it's too late." As he turned and walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to his proposal than he was letting on. That night, I broached the subject with Leo over dinner. "Your dad wants to move in?" he said incredulously. "And bankroll the shop?" I nodded. "That's what he claims, at least." Leo shook his head. "I don't trust him, Mara. Not after the way he's treated me all these years." "I know," I agreed. "But if he's serious about the money, it could be our only chance to save the business." Leo was silent for a long moment, weighing the options. Finally, he let out a heavy sigh. I guess we don't have much choice, but the second he starts meddling or pulling any of his usual crap, he's out. Understood? Understood, I said, hoping against hope that we weren't making a grave mistake. Little did we know, the real nightmare was just beginning. It didn't take long for Dad to move in, and almost immediately the atmosphere in our home shifted. His presence was suffocating, like a dark cloud hanging over us at all times. This place is a mess, he grumbled, surveying the living room with disdain. Didn't your mother teach you how to keep a proper house? I bit my tongue, reminding myself that getting into it with him would only make things worse. As the days went by, it became clear that Dad's no-strings-attached promise was nothing but empty words. He constantly criticized how I ran the household, from the way I cooked to how I disciplined the kids. You're too soft on them, he'd snap, glaring at me across the dinner table. No wonder they're so ill-behaved. The kids, sensing the tension, retreated into their rooms whenever Dad was around, only emerging when he wasn't home. Leo bore the brunt of Dad's derision, though. No matter how hard he worked at the shop, it was never good enough. I'm pulling in extra hours, trying to catch up on the backlog, Leo said one night, his voice weary. Dad scoffed. And how's that working out for you? Still can't seem to get ahead, can you? At least I'm trying, Leo shot back, his temper flaring. Which is more than I can say for you and your financial support. In a flash, Dad's expression turned thunderous. Watch your tone, boy. Don't forget who's keeping this sinking ship afloat. I stepped between them, dreading another explosive confrontation. Enough, both of you. We're all on edge, but fighting isn't going to solve anything. For a moment, it looked like Dad was going to press the issue. Then his face relaxed into a sickening smile that sent chills down my spine. You're right, Mara, he said, his voice deceptively calm. We're family, after all, and family should stick together, no matter what. The way he said those last few words, it was almost like a threat, a reminder that he held all the cards and we were at his mercy. In the following weeks, Dad's behavior only grew more erratic and disturbing. He'd make cryptic comments hinting at some deep, dark secret that could tear us all apart. You think you know someone, he'd say, his eyes boring into mine. But the truth is, we all have skeletons in our closets. I tried to brush it off, but his words gnawed at me, planting seeds of doubt and dread. What was he hiding? And more importantly, how far would he go to keep it buried? One night, I overheard a heated argument between Dad and Leo in the living room. Unable to resist, I crept closer, straining to make out their words. Can't keep living like this, Leo was saying, his voice strained. He's making our lives a living hell. Dad's response sent a chill down my spine. You'd better watch yourself, boy. You have no idea what I'm capable of. In that moment, I knew we were dealing with more than just a difficult houseguest. This was a man willing to do whatever it took to maintain his twisted hold over us. And as I retreated back upstairs, my heart pounding, I realized we were in way over our heads. The tension in our home had become unbearable. Every interaction with Dad felt like a ticking time bomb, liable to explode at any moment. I walked on eggshells, never knowing when his next outburst or veiled threat would come. One afternoon, while the kids were at school and Leo was working late at the shop, I decided to tidy up Dad's room. As I straightened up his nightstand, a loose floorboard caught my eye. Curious, I bent down and pried it up, revealing a hidden compartment underneath. Inside was a tattered notebook, its pages yellowed and worn. Against my better judgment, I opened it and began to read. The entries detailed Dad's gambling habits, how he'd squandered away large sums of money at the casino, chasing increasingly risky bets. My heart sank as I realized the extent of his addiction and how deeply in debt he must have been. But it was the final entry that made my blood run cold. The money for Leo's loan is gone, it read in Dad's shaky scrawl. I couldn't stop myself. I've ruined everything. They'll never forgive me for this. I sat there, numb, as the pieces fell into place. Dad's insistence on moving in, his constant belittling of Leo. It was all a ploy to make amends for betraying his own son in the worst way possible. Suddenly, his veiled threats and erratic behavior made sense. He was a man consumed by guilt and desperation, lashing out in a futile attempt to regain control. I don't know how long I sat there, the weight of Dad's betrayal crushing down on me. When I finally rose to my feet, my hands were trembling and I felt nauseous. That night, when Leo came home, I could barely look him in the eye. "Hey, what's wrong?" he asked, his brow furrowed with concern. I opened my mouth, but the words stuck in my throat. How could I tell him the truth, that his own father had stolen from him, dashing his dreams out of sheer selfishness? "Mara?" Leo pressed. "You're scaring me. What happened?" Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself. "It's your dad. I found something in his room today. Something he's been keeping from us." I proceeded to recount what I'd discovered in the notebook, watching as Leo's expression morphed from confusion to disbelief to a white-hot rage. "That son of a bitch," he seethed, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. "After everything he's put me through, this is how he repays me? By stealing from his own flesh and blood?" "Leo, I'm so sorry," I said, my voice thick with emotion. I had no idea he'd stoop this low. "Don't apologize for him," Leo spat. "He's the one who should be groveling, begging for forgiveness. But he won't get it. Not from me. Not after this." As he paced the room, his anger radiating off him in waves, I knew there was no going back. The fragile truce we'd formed with Dad was shattered beyond repair. And in that moment, I made a decision, one that would change the course of our family forever. "We can't let him get away with this," I said, my voice steely with resolve. "It's time we fought back. It's time we took our lives back from that miserable old man." Leo looked at me, his eyes burning with a mix of pain and determination. "What did you have in mind?" A plan was already taking shape in my mind, a way to expose Dad's lies and machinations to everyone he'd ever wronged. "Trust me," I said, placing a hand on his arm. "By the time I'm done, he'll finally get the karma he deserves." In the days following my discovery of Dad's betrayal, a fire was lit within me. I couldn't stand idly by while he continued to manipulate and undermine our family. It was time to take him down, once and for all. The first step was gathering allies. I knew I couldn't take on Dad alone. His web of deceit ran too deep. I needed people who had seen firsthand the kind of man he truly was. My first stop was the auto parts store downtown, where I tracked down Mark, an old friend of Leo's late brother Tim. He and Dad had been close once, before a bitter falling out that nobody dared speak of. "Mara?" Mark's eyes widened when he saw me. "It's been years. What brings you by?" "It's about your ex-friend, Gregory," I said, getting straight to the point. "The lies, the manipulation, the way he treats Leo and the rest of us. I'm guessing you know all about that." Mark's expression darkened. "That son of a bitch. After what he did to Tim, I'm not surprised he's still up to his old tricks." "Then you'll help me expose him?" I pressed. "Make him pay for all the lives he's destroyed?" Mark was silent for a moment, mulling it over. Finally he nodded. "You know I'm in. That bastard has it coming, and then some." With Mark on board, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. If anyone knew the depths of Dad's depravity, it was him. Next, I reached out to some of Dad's old poker buddies, the ones he'd inevitably swindled money from over the years. One by one, they agreed to join my cause, each with their own score to settle. As my makeshift alliance grew, so did my confidence. We spent nights poring over evidence, building an airtight case against Dad that would leave no room for doubt or denial. "The key is to hit him where it hurts most," Mark advised. "His ego, his reputation, his sense of control, that's what matters to scumbags like him." And then it hit me. The perfect way to bring Dad's world crashing down around him, while ensuring maximum public humiliation. His 70th birthday party. Every year, Dad made a big production out of his birthday, inviting all his old friends and former associates for a lavish celebration. This time, we'd be the ones delivering the surprise. "We'll gather everyone who's ever had a bone to pick with that miserable old coot," I told the group. "Friends, family, business associates, the whole lot. And then, right in the middle of his big night, we'll spring the truth on him." The looks on their faces said it all. This was the reckoning Dad had been due for years, maybe decades. By the time we were done, he'd have nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide. As the party date approached, the anticipation was palpable. We triple-checked every scrap of evidence, every witness testimony, leaving no stone unturned. Finally, the night arrived, and I could barely contain my nerves as guests began to trickle in. Dad, oblivious to our plot, greeted them all with his usual false bravado, soaking up the attention like a narcissistic sponge. Little did he know, his reign of terror was about to come to a crashing halt. Once we were done, there would be no more lies, no more manipulation, only the cold, hard truth, laid bare for all to see. I caught Mark's eye from across the room, and he gave me a subtle nod. It was go time. Steeling myself, I stepped forward, cleared my throat, and prepared to unleash a lifetime's worth of secrets and betrayals. "Excuse me, everyone. There's something you all need to hear." The room fell silent as all eyes turned towards me. Dad's expression morphed from confusion to outright suspicion. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. I took a deep breath, steeling my nerves. "For years, you've lied, manipulated, and betrayed everyone in this room," I began, my voice ringing out clearly. "You've stolen money, ruined lives, and passed it off as tough love. But no more. Tonight, the truth comes out." A murmur rippled through the crowd as I held up the tattered notebook, the damning evidence of Dad's gambling addiction and subsequent betrayal. In these pages, you'll find a detailed account of how Gregory Sanderson systematically squandered away his life savings, including the money meant for his son's business loan, I said, letting the weight of those words sink in. Dad's face had drained of all color. "Mara, you don't know what you're talking about," he sputtered. "That notebook is nothing but lies." "That's not all." Mark stepped forward, his expression thunderous. "How about the way you turned your back on Tim in his time of need, or how you've made Leo's life a living hell, tearing him down at every turn?" Other voices began to chime in, a chorus of accusations and grievances that had been bottled up for far too long. "You cheated me out of my retirement fund in that crooked poker game. You sold my business out from under me when times got tough. After Mom died, you became a completely different person. Cruel, vindictive, utterly heartless." Dad swiveled wildly, trying in vain to deny each and every claim, but we had him cornered, backed into a corner by the weight of his own misdeeds. "This is outrageous," he roared, his face flushed with impotent rage. "I'm your father, damn it! You can't treat me like this." In that moment, I felt a surge of pity for the pathetic, broken man before me. This was his true legacy, a lifetime of burned bridges and shattered trust, all in service of his own bloated ego. "We're done being your punching bags," I said, my voice heavy with finality. "You've tormented this family for the last time. Please, you have to understand." Dad blubbered, his bravado evaporating as he cast a desperate look around the room, searching for any shred of sympathy or support. But he found none. Only the cold, impassive stares of a dozen people he'd wronged, their respect for him shattered beyond repair. "Get out," Leo spoke up, his voice trembling with barely contained fury. "Get out of our home, get out of our lives. You're dead to us." A heavy silence descended as Dad's gaze met mine, his eyes pleading for mercy. But I felt nothing, no pity or remorse, only a sense of grim satisfaction that justice had finally been served. With one final, defiant glare, Dad turned and stormed out, the smattering of jeers and laughter following him out the door. We'd done it. Against all odds, we'd torn down the facade and exposed the monster underneath for all to see. As the crowd erupted into raucous cheers and applause, I allowed myself a small, triumphant smile. The nightmare was finally over. Dad's reign of terror had come to an end, undone by his own hubris and greed. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again, like a crushing weight had been lifted from my shoulders. As Leo pulled me into a fierce embrace, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we'd face them together, united as a family, free from Dad's toxic influence at last. It was a new beginning, paid for with the truth and the unraveling of a lifetime's worth of lies. And it was all worth it. In the aftermath of Dad's humiliating exposure, an eerie silence settled over our home. It was as if a dark cloud had finally lifted, allowing us to breathe freely for the first time in years. Leo and I sat on the couch, still processing the events of the night before. The kids were at school, blissfully unaware of the drama that had unfolded. "I can't believe it's really over," Leo murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "After everything he put us through." I squeezed his hand, offering a reassuring smile. "We did what we had to do. He brought this on himself." A knock at the door made us both tense, old habits dying hard. Leo rose to answer it, hand poised as if ready for a confrontation. It was Mark, a grim look etched onto his weathered features. "You guys better see this," he said, holding up his phone. On the screen was a news article, the headline blaring in bold letters, "Local businessman disowned after sordid scandal exposed at birthday party." Leo and I leaned in, devouring every scathing detail. It seemed one of Dad's so-called friends had tipped off the local paper about the events of the previous night, spilling all the sordid details of his deception and betrayal. The article didn't hold back, painting a damning portrait of a once-respected man brought low by his own greed and cruelty. By the time we reached the end, a sickening knot had formed in the pit of my stomach. "They're crucifying him," Leo muttered, his expression unreadable. A part of me felt a twisted sense of satisfaction, knowing that Dad was finally being held accountable for his actions. But another part couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness. This was a man I'd once looked up to, a father figure now reduced to a cautionary tale. In the days that followed, the fallout only intensified. Old friends and associates cut ties with Dad, his reputation in tatters. Even his own remaining family members wanted nothing to do with him, disgusted by his betrayal. He tried reaching out, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails pleading for a chance to explain himself. But we never responded, never opened that door again. As far as we were concerned, Gregory Sanderson was dead to us. With Dad gone, it was like a weight had been lifted from our shoulders. Leo threw himself into rebuilding the auto shop, finally able to focus without his father's constant belittling. The kids, sensing the shift in the household's mood, became more relaxed and carefree. It was like watching them come back to life. And me, I savored every moment, reveling in the newfound peace and harmony that had been so cruelly denied to us for far too long. Still, I couldn't quite shake the nagging feeling that Dad was out there somewhere, stewing in his own bitterness and remorse. A part of me wondered if he'd ever truly understand the depth of his transgressions, or if he'd simply double down on his victimhood. Those thoughts plagued me late one night as I lay awake, listening to the steady breathing of Leo beside me. In the stillness, my phone buzzed with a new voicemail. "Speak of the devil." Against my better judgment, I stepped into the hallway and played the message, Dad's gravelly voice filling the silence. "Mara," he rasped, his tone tinged with desperation. "I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but please, you have to let me explain. What you saw, what you think you know about me, it's only half the story." He paused, as if struggling to find the right words. "I made mistakes, horrible mistakes that I'll regret until the day I die. But there were reasons, extenuating circumstances that pushed me to the brink. If you'd only give me a chance, I could make you understand." The message clicked off, leaving me standing there in stunned silence. A part of me was tempted to delete it, to purge Dad's pleas from my life once and for all. But something held me back, a niggling sense of doubt. What if there was more to his story? What if, in our pursuit of vengeance, we'd missed a crucial piece of the puzzle? I stood there for a long moment, mulling over my options. Finally, I made a decision, one that would either offer my fractured family a shot at healing or tear open old wounds all over again. Taking a deep breath, I hit redial and pressed the phone to my ear, my heart pounding as it began to ring. No matter what came next, I owed it to myself to hear the whole truth, even if it destroyed me. The line clicked, and my heart jumped into my throat. "Dad, it's me." There was a long pause, as if he couldn't quite believe I was calling. "Mara? I got your message," I said, pushing past the lump in my throat. "And against my better judgment, I'm going to hear you out. But I need you to understand, whatever you say isn't going to change anything. We're still done." Another heavy silence stretched between us, charged with unspoken tension and too many years of hurt. "Fair enough," he said at last, his voice little more than a rasp. "You deserve the truth, no matter how painful it might be." He took a shuddering breath, as if bracing himself. "It all started after your mother passed." For the next hour, Dad laid everything bare, the crippling grief and loneliness that had driven him into the arms of his gambling addiction. The mounting debts, the desperation that led him to make that fateful decision to dip into Leo's loan money. "I never intended to betray him like that," Dad insisted, his words tinged with remorse. "I thought I could win it all back before anyone was the wiser, but I got in too deep, and by the time I realized my mistake, it was too late." He spoke of his shame, his cowardice in moving in with us instead of coming clean right away, how the guilt had slowly twisted him into the monster we'd come to know. I took my anger out on you, on Leo, because it was easier than facing the truth, that I'd become the greatest failure a father could be. As his tale unfolded, a part of me felt a strange sense of pity welling up. Here was a broken, pathetic old man laying his soul bare, owning up to his failings in a desperate bid for what? Redemption? Absolution? When he finally fell silent, I found myself at a loss for words. Part of me wanted to unleash the full force of my fury, to remind him of the lives he'd shattered beyond repair. But another part, the part that still faintly remembered the man he used to be, strong, proud, commanding respect, felt something else entirely. Regret. "Why didn't you just tell us the truth from the beginning?" I asked, my voice little more than a whisper. "Why did you let it go this far?" "Would you have listened?" he shot back, a flicker of his old defiance shining through. "Or would you have just seen it as another failure, more proof that the great Gregory Sanderson was a worthless drunk squandering his final years away?" His words hung heavy in the air, and I realized with a sinking feeling that he was right. We'd made too many assumptions, been too eager to paint him as the villain. We were all guilty in our own way. I trailed off, struggling to find the right response. In the end, I settled for a simple truth. "I'm sorry, Dad. Sorry we didn't give you a chance, that we just assumed the worst." An eternity seemed to pass before he finally spoke again. "No, kiddo," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Don't apologize. Not after everything I put you through. If anyone deserves a reckoning, it's me." I could hear the acceptance in his tone, the resignation of a man who had finally made peace with his demons. "Maybe it's for the best," he continued. "You and Leo, you've got a real chance to start fresh now, build the life you deserve without my toxicity weighing you down." My throat tightened at the thought of never seeing him again, of shutting that door forever. But I knew, deep down, that he was right. Sometimes breaking a family apart is the only way to save what's left of it. "Take care of yourself, Dad," I choked out, the words almost sticking in my throat. And I forgive you." There was a soft intake of breath on the other end, like a weight finally being lifted. "Thank you," he whispered. That's all I needed to hear." The line went dead, and I was left alone with the silence and a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. Grief, anger, relief. It all swirled together into a confusing jumble. But one truth rang clear above the rest. It was finally, truly over. Dad's specter had been exorcised, leaving us free to forge our own path forward. As the dawn light crept through the curtains, I rejoined Leo in bed, snuggling close and savoring the warmth of his embrace. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace wash over me, the promise of a fresh start glimmering on the horizon. It would be a long road, strewn with lingering hurts and hard-earned lessons. But we would walk it together, a family reforged in the fire of hard truths and even harder choices. And no matter what the future held, I knew one thing for certain. The cycle of hatred and bitterness ended here. A new day was dawning, rife with possibilities, and I intended to greet it with open arms.
A year ago, at the age of 33, I found myself facing a divorce from my 39-year-old husband of 7 years. We had met during an internship where he was training as a surgeon, and our relationship had flourished. Despite both achieving our career goals, our marital bliss took a nosedive, particularly when my mother-in-law, Karen, moved in with us. Karen never concealed her disdain for me, convinced that I was with her son solely for financial gain. Although my husband willingly supported me as a stay-at-home wife, I brushed off Karen's attitude as typical mother-in-law behavior. However, my complacency waned when I noticed her growing close to a female friend of mine, Caitlin. Karen consistently brought up Caitlin in conversations, even comparing us in front of my husband. Initially, I believed Karen was attempting to steer my friend towards my husband, thinking Caitlin was a more suitable match. I couldn't have been more mistaken. It turned out that my husband was the one pursuing Caitlin, having cheated on me with her for over 2 years. When he finally requested a divorce, he openly admitted his infidelity and his desire for Caitlin to replace me in his life. The pain and anger I felt were magnified when he offered me alimony, which I promptly declined, wanting no part of his money. To add insult to injury, both my ex-husband and mother-in-law mocked me, claiming they were doing me a favor by offering a financial head start. They doubted my ability to survive without their support, confidently asserting that I would come crawling back within 6 months. Little did they know that as soon as the divorce proceedings were finalized, I had a different plan in mind. After securing a cozy apartment with my savings, I delved into the job market, eager to move forward. Soon enough, I landed an interview for a high-ranking position at a prestigious private clinic. It was there that I crossed paths with Garrett, my now fiancé, who happened to be my boss. What began as a typical office romance turned into a whirlwind. Within 4 months of dating, Garrett proposed, offering me the choice to continue working alongside him or opt for a comfortable life as a stay-at-home partner. As I navigated this new chapter, my ex-husband remained largely absent from my thoughts. Pride prevented me from indulging in the post-breakup habit of stalking his social media. However, about a week ago, my ex reached out, expressing a desire to talk. Initially, I dismissed and blocked him upon discovering the message's origin. Yet persistence prevailed, and the following day he showed up at my workplace. After some reluctance, I agreed to a lunch meeting, expecting a one-on-one conversation. To my surprise, his mother joined us. During the lunch, my ex went on a remorseful tirade, expressing regret for their past actions and desperately seeking forgiveness. The climax was their pitiful request for me to take him back. Unimpressed, I labeled their plea as pathetic and reminded them of their earlier prediction that I would be the one crawling back to them within 6 months. Despite my firm rejection, they persisted in begging, painting a picture of life returning to its previous state. As my lunch break neared its end, I firmly declined and asked them to leave me alone. I asserted that I now had a fiancé, who I proudly claimed was 100 times better than my ex-husband. Leaving the scene, I taunted my ex by vaguely mentioning my fiancé as someone from work. Upon returning, I shared the bizarre encounter with Garrett, who promised to investigate the situation. The next 2 days unfolded with an air of anticipation. Upon obtaining the information, Garrett's investigative team uncovered a disturbing revelation about my ex-husband. It appeared that, driven by ego and negligence, he had left an item inside a patient during one of his surgeries. The patient, upon discovering this, promptly filed a lawsuit against the hospital, which responded by terminating my ex-husband. The ongoing lawsuit posed a significant threat to his medical license. Understanding the gravity of the situation, I realized why my ex-husband and mother-in-law were desperately seeking my forgiveness. However, I turned to seek the perspective of others, posing the question, am I the a-hole for refusing to take my ex-husband back despite their pleas? In the first update, I shared that 2 days after the lunch confrontation, Garrett handed me an envelope containing a report filled with inaccuracies and lies aimed at discrediting me. It was evident that my ex-mother-in-law and her son were behind this attempt to tarnish my reputation. The letter emphasized my relationship with a coworker and referenced company policies, revealing they had done some research. Ironically, they failed to realize that my co-worker boyfriend was the owner who had implemented those policies. I chose to ignore their efforts, anticipating that it might not be the end of their schemes. In the second update, I confirmed my suspicions as letters inundated our mailbox, filled with complaints about me. Fake accounts posted negative reviews on our clinic's review site, all part of their orchestrated attempt to sabotage my career. Despite the fake nature of these accounts, the relentless assault on my professional reputation was unnerving. The situation made me reflect on the potential consequences had I not been in a relationship with Garrett. As I grappled with these challenges, I couldn't help but wonder about the lengths they were willing to go to destroy my career. The updates unfolded with a mix of gratitude for support received and apprehension about the ongoing efforts to undermine my professional life. I chose to build my life without them, refusing to be their lapdog once again. Contemplating revenge, I set my sights on something equally significant: his marriage. Aware of my ex-friend's jealousy, I envisioned her dismay upon learning that he was attempting to return to me, the woman they had deemed useless. Seeking a taste of their own medicine, I wondered what you guys thought of my plan. In the third update, I executed my revenge, creating a new Instagram account. I easily found my ex-friend Caitlin, who, despite her husband's job loss and impending court case, portrayed a life of luxury on social media. Her posts flaunted shopping sprees, cozy dates, and notably her pregnancy. Discovering that she had married the man-child ex-husband just 2 months after our divorce stung, considering the wasted 7 years of my life. Nonetheless, armed with this information, I initiated a conversation with her, gradually forming a friendship. Over a month, I subtly planted seeds of doubt, playing the role of a caring friend while learning about her marital troubles. Once convinced she was where I wanted her, I called my ex-husband, convincing him to meet privately to discuss rekindling our marriage. I informed my fiancé, ensuring everything was stable for the upcoming events. At the meeting, I found him nervously happy, relishing in the twisted satisfaction of knowing his joy would soon turn sour. Implementing stage 1 of the plan, I set the rule that he must refer to me in the third person. Confused but compliant, he played along. Transitioning to stage 2, I used leading questions to extract information about his marriage. As expected, he unleashed a torrent of slander, detailing his unhappiness, lack of love for his wife, and regrets about leaving me. He even expressed distaste for the unborn child, wishing for a miscarriage. He willingly threw his current wife under the bus, outlining explicit plans to return to me at the first opportunity. Though some details are not safe for work, the outcome aligned perfectly with my expectations. He willingly exposed his true colors, confirming that my revenge plan was succeeding. Once I successfully deceived him into pouring out his heart, I sweetly assured him that I needed time to process everything. I promised that the next time we met, I would be single and ready to rekindle our relationship. He eagerly embraced this prospect, displaying childlike excitement. In that moment, a sadistic pleasure washed over me, knowing the imminent betrayal he was about to experience. Back home, I collaborated with my husband and a team of editors, marking the initiation of stage 3 of the plan. Recordings and videos were meticulously crafted to conceal my identity, yet emphasize my female presence. His words were strategically edited to magnify their negative impact. With this done, the next step involved delivering the content to his current wife. Using another Instagram account, I ensured she saw the incriminating material during a vulnerable moment. Engaging in a feigned sympathetic conversation, I artfully fueled her anger. Gradually, I began influencing her perspective, persuading her that she deserved better and that he didn't deserve her. Eventually, I directed her towards the path of revenge. Continuing the act of a concerned friend, I encouraged her to divorce him and take everything, emphasizing that he wanted to return to his ex-wife. With the seeds of discontent planted, she fell into my manipulative web, convinced that leaving him penniless was the appropriate course of action. In the fourth update, I gleefully reported that my plan had worked. A week after the revelation, he called me in a fit of rage, threatening retaliation for deceiving him. Calmly listening to his tirade, I laughed with my fiancé, reveling in the success of my scheme. Soon after, I received a message from my newfound bestie, announcing the commencement of the divorce process. With the money I provided, she secured a formidable lawyer, ready to leave him financially depleted. As usual, I continued my manipulative influence, planting sinister ideas in her mind. Once convinced that she had turned against him, I disappeared, citing business as an excuse. The onslaught of letters also ceased, signaling the apparent success of my elaborate plot. So, it seemed they had finally realized I wouldn't be getting fired anytime soon. After the whole divorce ordeal and my ex-husband going off on me, I received a surprising message from him just 1 month and a few days later. He claimed he wanted to apologize for what happened. Initially shocked and suspicious, My doubts were confirmed when he suggested we have dinner on him as an apology gift. He also expressed a desire to discuss the possibility of rekindling or at least becoming friends again, emphasizing that we were friends before lovers. Discussing this with my fiancé, we both harbored suspicions and decided to play along. My fiancé had someone discreetly watch and follow him to uncover any potential ulterior motives. It didn't take long for the suspicions to be validated. 3 days before the planned date, he visited a store known for its background deals on certain substances, including roofies. Upon further investigation, it became clear that he intended to drug me during the date, film compromising scenes, and then use it as leverage for various purposes, possibly including blackmail, money, rekindling the relationship, or assistance with his court case. The horrifying realization of his intentions left me horrified. Reacting to this revelation, my fiancé proposed a counterplan, suggesting we give him a taste of his own medicine. The day before the scheduled dinner, we arranged for a male stripper to discreetly follow me on the date, keeping a distance until the drugged food or drink was switched. Once the effects kicked in, the stripper would intervene and capture the moment, intending to send the footage to his wife and those suing him. Executing the plan flawlessly, I met up with him on the arranged day, enduring another round of his apologies and remorseful speeches. He admitted to falsely accusing me of sabotaging his marriage, even thanking the unknown person behind it. While engaging in this conversation, I observed him drugging my drink, but managed to switch it in the nick of time. Once he consumed the tampered drink, I calmly excused myself to the bathroom, anticipating his inevitable follow-up. True to expectations, he soon entered the dimly lit hallway, only to be swiftly seized and taken away. The plan had successfully unfolded, and I awaited the aftermath of our strategic retaliation. I played my part by inquiring about him and settling the bill that night. The events of that evening were a blur, but the morning after, his wife texted me, claiming she was devastated. Apparently, the man she was divorcing, who was now expecting a child with me, had not only cheated on her with his ex-wife, but also with a man. It was a ludicrous situation, and though I struggled to maintain a composed demeanor, I kept up the act. Simultaneously, I continued with the lawsuit, and judging by the latest headlines, the video had reached its intended audience. That's the gist of what's been happening. I sense that everything is approaching a resolution, and soon things will return to normal. I'll wait and see before providing a final update. In the concluding update, I reveal that he lost everything, just as I desired. His marriage crumbled, and Caitlin took everything in the divorce, gaining full custody, child support, alimony, essentially every conceivable asset. The court case ended decisively against him, resulting in bankruptcy. The last encounter with him revealed a dire situation. Both he and his mother ended up broke and homeless, moving between shelters. Attempts to visit the clinic were thwarted by my fiancé's intervention, ensuring they never returned. As I prepare for my upcoming marriage, I reflect on the irony that he divorced me with the belief that I would suffer without them. Yet it's he who finds himself begging for scraps. I express not just their deserving fate, but the manifestation of karma. Grateful for the support throughout the story, I conclude, acknowledging that karma indeed has its way. Navigating life with my in-laws has become quite a challenge. They seem intent on moving into our newly acquired home and expecting me to cater to their every need. The irony is, as soon as I began to find success and make money, their demands escalated. It's disheartening to see one of my life's biggest dreams coming true, only to have it undermined in the most absurd way imaginable. Welcome to the chaos that is my life, courtesy of my dear in-laws. My wife, Jackie, and I have enjoyed 2 happy years of marriage. I work for a video game company, and she's a college professor, and we've excelled in our respective careers. Since our early days together, we've demonstrated a shared commitment to building a future together. Call us fanciful or fast-paced, but our relationship has always been grounded in a shared vision. Our journey began with hypothetical talks about the future, which eventually materialized into a wedding and now a home of our own. The missing piece of our life plan involved securing a house, a crucial step before moving on to the next chapters, like pets and babies. We started in a modest rental, saving diligently to achieve our dream of owning a home in an ideal suburb. The prospect of having a space to call our own filled us with excitement. We took on extra jobs to make financial progress, which unfortunately led to less time together and strained our relationship. Despite the challenges, we persevered, scraped together the down payment, and secured a fantastic deal on a 4-bedroom house with a backyard, spacious kitchen, and 3 bathrooms. The house even came furnished, thanks to substantial gifts received after our wedding. This achievement marked not only a milestone for us as a couple, but also a triumph in the face of economic challenges. Our home symbolized the unbreakable bond we shared. The only remaining task was to complete the purchase of white goods, a relatively easier step given the generous gifts we received. Yet, as we reveled in our success, the intrusion of my in-laws threatened to overshadow our joy and complicate our happily ever after. We invested in essential appliances, including cleaning machines and an executive refrigerator, enabling us to weather the situation for a few months. The first night in our new home was a joyous celebration, marked by a mini party with our closest friends and family. However, the tone took a somber turn when my in-laws subtly hinted at their desire to come and live with us, an idea that now haunts my thoughts. Let me provide some context about my in-laws. Outwardly, they are individuals who consistently present a facade of laughter and contentment, appearing to be exemplary parents to the world. However, beneath this veneer lies a darker reality that Jackie, my wife, has shared with me. Her childhood was marked by physical abuse and mental punishment, with her parents instilling bizarre beliefs, such as considering cartoons as satanic, deeming colored clothes unsuitable for public wear, and asserting that candy caused cavities almost immediately. These were traumatically misleading messages for children. Jackie's brother, Joel, the family clown and the youngest sibling, faced rejection when he came out about 6 years ago, shortly after Jackie and I began dating. The parents did not handle his revelation well. I recall moments when Jackie seemed avoidant and irritable in the early stages of our relationship. I initially thought it was directed at me, but I later learned that these emotions were a result of family arguments involving Joel splashing onto her and their other brother. Despite Joel's relatively reserved nature, several disputes led to him leaving home. Initially, he sought refuge with a friend who offered support in dealing with his problems. However, after subsequent arguments, following the conflicts Joel had with Jackie and the other brother, he moved out, and to this day, his whereabouts remain unknown. Occasionally, he sends messages to Jackie and his siblings assuring them that he's fine, but he refrains from disclosing his location until his parents accept him. Regrettably, the older generation is steadfast in their refusal to embrace their son as he is, choosing to lose him rather than love him unconditionally. The question looms: do I want these individuals to be part of my son's life? Frankly, they're not even the type of people I wish to be associated with. Their pride in an old-school mindset clashes with my values. I refuse to be someone who lacks respect for others or, worse, pretends that everything is fine when it's not. Adding to my disdain, they now want to invade our home. They approached Jackie, and notably, I was excluded from that conversation. They didn't ask if they could move in. Instead, they issued it as a directive. Jackie's relationship with her parents is complicated. She doesn't want to be around them, yet she grapples with the belief that parents are parents and blood ties are unalterable. I'll admit that I've never been their favorite, for reasons ranging from my job in the lucrative video game industry to the fact that I have tattoos, which they associate with the devil. When I heard about their plan to move in, I adamantly said no. I urged Jackie to talk to them, but she insists she's tried, leaving me uncertain about how this situation will unfold. Fast forward to the present, and the scenario has become utterly bleak. My in-laws arrived with their car and suitcases, ready to move in. It's been a week since then, and conflicts have erupted. The primary issue revolves around their car, which they consistently leave in the garage, inconveniencing us. We must seek their permission to access our own truck when we need it. Despite being the ones who go out the least, they insist on keeping their car in the front for emergency exits. This ongoing clash has made the situation increasingly difficult. Yeah, I get it. It's understandable. But it's still incredibly annoying. They even made Jackie late for class because they left without the car and took the car keys with them, leaving us locked in. Jackie had to resort to taking the bus, arriving almost half an hour late. The worst part is that they don't seem willing to change or comprehend the impact of their actions. We've spoken to Jackie's brother Jonathan, but he feels unable to assist right now, given his 3 children and smaller, less comfortable house. We don't want to burden them further. My in-laws have their own house, and yet they seem to do this just to irritate us. Despite their age, they don't require special care. In fact, being in a place like this only stresses them more. It's not that I dislike extra help. It's just that they are like pieces of furniture, utterly useless. At least furniture is comfortable and helps you relax. They are the antithesis of furniture, annoying by their mere presence. It's only been one Sunday since they arrived, and if every weekend is going to be like this, I'd rather not have them in the same city. My mother-in-law blared the religious channel at full volume, disrupting one of the few occasions where Jackie and I could sleep in. Meanwhile, Jackie's dad smokes like a chimney in the courtyard, and the smoke occasionally wafts into our makeshift office, permeating the room with the scent of nicotine. It's unpleasant, makes me cough, and raises the risk of getting sick. Jackie tells me that her father quit smoking years ago, but picked up the habit again at 70, feeling that at that point, nothing else could hurt him. There are many aspects of this situation that worry me, but one specific concern is their hinting at bringing all their stuff from the old house to sell. This move would make their stay with us permanent, and that fills me with dread and sadness. As absurd as it may sound, my in-laws aren't fans of pets, and they refuse to adopt any animals. This leaves me wondering when they started having more say in my household than I do. Regarding Jackie, she does her best. But the biggest issue lies in the fact that I spend the most time in the house, making the experience incredibly uncomfortable. Besides, they treat their daughter like a servant, asking her for breakfast and to buy medicine. I've offered to help, but she can be stubborn, insisting that, as her parents, it's her responsibility. I don't want her to shoulder all the chores, understanding that she can get very tired. At this point, I feel useless in my relationship. Update number 2. Thank goodness this remains anonymous, as I wouldn't want my acquaintances to know that, like much of the world's population, I despise my in-laws. Mary and Joseph couldn't be worse as housemates. They've completely taken over the home that Jackie and I painstakingly built from scratch, from the decorations to our daily routine. Even the most personal touches, like buying tons of tapioca and putting up decorations from their trips around the country, now define more than half of the house. It no longer feels like the creation of a young couple, but has been transformed into their new sanctuary, and it disgusts me. Friction on both sides has escalated. There was a day when I was taking a bath, and my father-in-law casually announced that he was coming in to pee, claiming the upstairs bathroom was better. I protested, stating that this was a blatant invasion of privacy. However, he argued that I had the curtain drawn, so there was no need to be upset. Keep in mind, we have 3 bathrooms, and neither of them contributes to other aspects of the house, such as preparing meals. Jackie learned to cook with her siblings because it was a matter of life and death for her mother. However, the in-laws show no interest in contributing to household tasks. I thought they'd be a humble family that not only respected but also took advantage of their daughter's culinary skills. Instead, they are solely interested in the house, reducing Jackie and me to serving as tissues. Cheap ones at that. Our attempts to host friends have been marred by constant complaints from the in-laws. They text us incessantly from their room, complaining about everything from the music volume to our alcohol consumption. They even insisted that it's impolite for hosts to drink in their own house. Now, our friends formally decline our invitations, and it's disheartening. We're forced to sacrifice our social life to accommodate unwelcome guests in our own home. Update number 3. I finally experienced a brief period of peace at home. Jonathan, Jackie's brother, understanding our situation, decided to take my in-laws for a weekend under the pretext that his children would spend more time with their grandparents. We were immensely grateful, seizing the opportunity to enjoy some privacy. Friday was spent sleeping until noon on Saturday without worrying about a thing. On Sunday, we watched movies and tried out a couple of recipes we've been wanting to make for a long time. As hard as it is to admit, we felt like we still had so much more to do. Consequently, Jackie and I discussed the difficult decision of asking my in-laws to find their own place, as painful as it may be. I assured her that I would stand by her side during the conversation, aiming to remain strong. We decided to discuss our concerns with her parents upon their return. That Monday evening, after returning from work, we broached the topic with them. However, initiating a conversation about not wanting an older couple to live with you is inherently awkward. The challenge lay in figuring out how to express our desire for them to have their own space without offending them. Inevitably, the discussion turned to the two options we saw: placing them in a nursing home or keeping them with us. Financial considerations were set aside as we genuinely believed a nursing home would offer the best care and comfort for everyone involved. Unfortunately, they did not share our perspective. The mere proposal offended them deeply. Despite offering to assist with expenses, they began raising their voices, insisting they were not feeble old people and that we needn't go to such lengths for them. Feeling the tension rise, Jackie spoke up, stating, "To be honest, it's become somewhat complicated for us to keep the two of you in the house, not so much economically, but in terms of living together because we want and need to have our own space as a couple." Their reaction was loud and defensive. Unable to tolerate their shouting, I interjected, stating that we never wanted them in the house in the first place. They invited themselves. This struck a nerve, as they felt we saw them as useless burdens. In response, they scolded us, portraying themselves as victims. My father-in-law, refusing to yield, asserted that nobody would force him out of his own house. The situation escalated when he turned violent, threatening me due to our age difference. While I am not a violent person, the confrontation brought out the worst in me. Jackie intervened, calming us down and suggesting we discuss the matter in the morning. By then, I had reached my breaking point. I firmly asserted that there was no way they would stay at my place. The night concluded with them retreating to their room, upset, mirroring our own feelings. Strangely, it became a night of peace in the house, with both parties silently stewing in their thoughts. I even dreamt of evicting them on the spot, as crude as it may sound. I'm struggling to find an immediate solution to this ongoing conflict, but Jackie and I are in constant communication, brainstorming potential resolutions. Update number 4. I sense that some readers might be anticipating a more intense turn in the story. And unfortunately, it did take a somber turn. Jackie had a significant argument with her parents, details of which she chose not to share with me. I was left in limbo for a couple of days. About a week ago, when their conversation concluded, I found Jackie crying as she packed a small bag, apologizing and explaining that she'd stay at Jonathan's for a few days. Just like that, my life vanished from our home to her brother's, leaving me alone with my in-laws for 2 whole days. No one addressed the situation with me during that time, and Jackie, through occasional messages, assured me she'd be back soon, enjoying time with her nephews. I tried to stay home as little as possible during this period, allowing ample time for reflection on what our next course of action should be. Despite my efforts, no clear plan emerged. When Jackie returned, she presented the final details of her master plan to rid ourselves of her parents. I won't delve into the specifics for now, but I'll emphasize that when someone messes with your spouse, even if they're her parents, forgiveness may not be on the table. Update number 5. It's been 3 long months since the last update, and the situation has left Jackie and me on edge. We've exhausted all avenues to evict her parents, even exploring legal means, but the protective laws for older individuals seem to work against us. In an almost absurd twist, they attempted to take over the house, revealing documents that implied Jackie's consent, though she signed without understanding. We chose to remain silent at the time, but now we've decided to show them no mercy. We've organized a plan to sell the house without informing them. It's painful that we can't even make it our own home, but it seems we may have to follow in the footsteps of Jackie's younger brother, Joel, and simply disappear from their lives. In our pursuit of happiness and peace, the realization struck that having my in-laws hovering over us, whispering negativity, was not conducive to a good life for anyone. So we've decided to offer our house to work colleagues of a friend, people we're not particularly close to. My friend will play a pivotal role in recommending the house for sale at a good price. You might wonder about the whereabouts of my in-laws in this equation. Well, they'll be on vacation with my father-in-law's younger sibling for 2 weeks. During this time, we plan to finalize arrangements, take our belongings, and leave the house under Jonathan's care. He's been helping us and assured us that his parents still have their old residence to return to. Jonathan is not afraid to confront them when they move back, especially since his family lacks the space to support them, even if they wanted to. We'll be making them move during this period, organizing everything to remain anonymous long enough to slip away unnoticed. It may seem a bit crazy, but we're serious about regaining our own space without unwanted intruders. Update number 6. We're still at the party, and if my excitement is palpable, it's because we all are. I'll cut to the chase as I sense your anticipation. We did go through with the change, finalizing the sale, leaving the place, and what transpired afterward is worthy of a television series. In chronological order, we sold the house, stayed with Jonathan's family for a couple of days to complete the move, and secured an apartment in the city center. While smaller than our previous home, we had surplus funds that found their way into a savings account. Then came the waiting, a mere 2 or 3 days that felt like the longest of our lives. A little less than a week later, we started receiving messages from Jonathan detailing the aftermath. We owe our lives to him because he almost masterfully covered up our tracks. Upon their return, my in-laws found the house inhabited by strangers, adorned with new decor, and none of their old belongings. The family that was now in residence returned to find a pair of older individuals complaining and yelling about why they were in their house. Instead of being bewildered, the family's reaction infuriated my in-laws. So, without hesitation, they dialed the police. While I wasn't privy to all the details, I knew it was a bitter situation. The elderly couple ended up spending a couple of nights at the police station as authorities tried to untangle the mess. What intrigued and somewhat troubled me was the conspicuous absence of our involvement in the elders' saga. The new owners reached out to us, but we insisted they relocate the elderly pair due to the potential legal ramifications of illegal trespassing, a demand they'd promptly fulfilled. Legal disputes ensued, and we closely followed the proceedings. Thankfully, we remained unscathed, only providing some private statements. It was a trying time, and Jackie shed many tears, but ultimately, we emerged victorious. The elderly couple, facing the possibility of trespassing charges, incurred a substantial fine and were mandated to return to their own home. This marked their lowest point, as they were already established in a residence, making the legal implications quite severe. In a nutshell, we got what we desired. The elders paid the fine, tails between their legs, and we returned home. According to Jonathan, they couldn't have been angrier. Oddly enough, a couple of positive outcomes emerged from this ordeal. First and foremost, we reconnected with Jackie's brother Joel, who, upon learning about his parents' actions, decided to rejoin us. We invited him home, and he accepted. Future updates will delve into his stories from the past few years. Plans for a family dinner are in the works, sans the older folks. We're eager to capture moments with pictures, knowing that the parents lack social networks to stalk us. Here's a little secret. After the dinner, we plan to reveal another joyful development. Jackie's pregnant, and I'm going to be a dad. It's an exciting time for us, financially supported by what we saved at the apartment. Though not guaranteed, Joel expressed a willingness to assist with the baby's care. We're thrilled, as we were on the brink of thinking it might not happen. Despite the potential awkwardness when the baby asks for grandparents, we're embracing the start of a new and promising chapter for our growing family. Reflecting on the comments, some argued that our actions were overboard, advocating for a straightforward confrontation. While I understand those sentiments, the unique plan we executed unfolded successfully, leading to positive outcomes in our lives. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below. I appreciate your engagement and hope you all have a fantastic day. Stay kind. My mother-in-law believed she could outsmart me, convinced that she could manipulate me into signing a loan document and gifting her a house for free. It's as if she thinks I'm incredibly naive, but little does she know, I have a plan that will leave her utterly embarrassed. I don't really care about her opinion on the matter. Before I married my husband, I had high hopes for a positive relationship with my mother-in-law. Having lost my own mother as a teenager, I thought a great mother-in-law could help fill that void. Unfortunately, my expectations were shattered when I met my worst nightmare in human form during my relationship with Bob. When Bob and I began dating, meeting his family was something I eagerly anticipated. Unbeknownst to me, my eagerness might have seemed desperate to some, leading Bob to repeatedly postpone the introduction. Eventually, I met his parents, and I instantly fell in love with them. Maria, Bob's mother, initially seemed like someone I wanted to impress, not in the conventional sense, but rather to become her favorite daughter-in-law. From the third month of dating, Bob and I knew we were heading towards marriage due to our compatibility. Like me, Bob and his parents were born in Europe, but they were Americans proficient only in English. Bob had hinted a few times that his mother could become a burden in the future, but I dismissed the warnings. I genuinely cared for her and willingly helped with chores whenever she asked. My motivation stemmed from a desire to amend mistakes from my teenage years, during which my relationship with my own mother was strained. Despite Bob's warnings, I disregarded the possibility of being manipulated by his mother. I aimed to build a strong bond, having had failed attempts with older women in the past. Even when Bob cautioned me, I believed he simply wanted his mother to have some space. However, I started noticing signs that she might be taking advantage of our relationship. For instance, Bob's mother would intentionally neglect her dishes on the days she knew I would be visiting, hinting at a hidden agenda. Upon my arrival, I willingly took on the responsibility of doing the dishes and tidying up her chaotic kitchen. The same applied to grocery shopping. Adding to the complexity, Maria was disabled and relied on a limited disability check. Despite its inadequacy, she would frequently call me to borrow money. My inability to say no, coupled with my fear of being perceived as a bad person, led me to comply. Over the 2 years of Bob and I dating, my relationship with his mother flourished. Even when I sensed that she was taking advantage of me, I hesitated to stop my actions. The constant borrowing, whether it was $50 or $100, didn't bother me because I wanted Maria to be content. She had come to view me as her own, and I guess she exploited that connection. Deep down, every smile I elicited from Maria made me feel like I was rectifying the mistakes of my troubled teenage years. As a teenager, I unknowingly caused my single-parent mother a lot of distress. It wasn't until I grew older and she passed away that I understood the gravity of my actions. Despite her efforts, I constantly compared her to others and eventually ran away from home. I didn't return until her demise, leaving her with a skewed perception of her motherhood. This painful realization fueled my actions toward Maria. Eventually, Bob and I got married, marking one of the happiest moments of my life. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was the joy of having a supportive family to fall back on. I could officially call Maria Mom, and as a nurse, I became her personal caregiver, bringing us even closer. Little did I know that Maria didn't reciprocate my feelings as much as I loved her. She seemed to be the type who went above and beyond, even with those she cherished. About a year into our marriage, Maria began urging us to have children. Bob and I, however, had decided to wait at least 3 years before starting a family. When we explained our reasoning to Maria, little did I know that this decision would unravel a new chapter in our relationship. She vehemently opposed our decision, immediately presenting us with a litany of reasons why we should start a family sooner rather than later. At that time, Bob had been laid off from his job, placing the financial burden squarely on my shoulders. Despite our own challenges, Maria continued to call, requesting to borrow money. She often complained about the meager disability funds she received. In her texts, she acknowledged her debts and promised to repay as soon as she had the means. Strangely, I never bothered to keep track, lending money out of love rather than expecting repayment. Maria, however, consistently reminded me of the amounts she owed, perhaps attempting to reassure me of her intention to settle the debts. Initially, I thought Maria's insistence on us having children early would subside after we explained that we weren't ready. However, each visit to her house or dinner turned into an opportunity for her to bring up the topic. Initially tolerable, her persistence escalated to sending YouTube videos, baby pictures, and images of happy families. It became overwhelming, prompting me to confide in Bob. His attempt to address the issue only worsened it, as Maria began offering unsolicited advice, even recommending fertility doctors. Her assumptions reached a breaking point when she suggested I might be barren, throwing a tantrum. Frustrated by her incessant interference, I distanced myself. I reduced visits and limited phone calls to once or twice a week, ensuring Bob was present during our conversations. Fortunately, after 2 years of marriage, Maria seemed to grasp the gravity of her behavior. She accepted that we would start a family when we felt ready, not succumbing to her wishes. Even though our closeness had diminished, Maria remained in my thoughts, and I extended help whenever possible. By this time, she had recovered and resumed work, reducing her financial requests. About 4 months later, with Maria back at work, Bob secured a high-paying job in another country. Gradually, I found myself rekindling a closer connection with Maria. This time around, our relationship seemed to have transcended the need for favors, and she was now capable of handling tasks she couldn't before. While I had friends to hang out with, I believe that a mother holds a unique place in our lives, distinct from our friendships. Thinking that Maria no longer required my assistance, I was blindsided when I discovered her attempt to deceive me into signing her home loan papers. For weeks, she had been discussing a purchase, leading me to trust her without confirming the details. Initially, she mentioned needing my signature for a car, but one day, I stumbled upon a message on her phone that revealed the truth. The papers were not for a car, but for a home loan. Enraged, I contemplated confronting her immediately but feared the hurtful words that might ensue. Instead, I kept silent and left after she returned with snacks. Back at my apartment, I pondered ways to outsmart Maria and eventually devised a plan. I created a document in our country's native language, knowing she was proficient only in English and wouldn't understand its content. When Maria called, stating she had obtained the papers from the dealer and inviting me to sign them, I seized the opportunity. Carrying the bogus document, I requested a copy in my native language. Maria, unsuspecting, agreed. I left her house, claiming I needed to print the subtitled document, and returned minutes later with the fabricated paper I had prepared the previous night. Upon my return, I convinced Maria that we should both sign this document instead of the original home loan papers. Obligingly, she agreed. Rushing off to work in the afternoon, I promised to drop by later in the evening. When I returned to Maria's house that night, I anticipated her realization of the ruse, expecting her to send the papers back to the company. To my astonishment, her reaction was quite unexpected. I attended a small house party that Maria had organized, unaware that she was celebrating the successful signing of the house loan papers. She had invited her friends, and the atmosphere was filled with laughter and drinks. Little did I know, everyone in the room, except my father-in-law, was privy to Maria's deceptive act. Upon entering the house, I sensed that Maria wasn't thrilled to see me. Her attention was solely on her guests. To add insult to injury, they openly discussed the loan in my presence. Realizing the situation, I decided to play ignorant. I inquired about the loan paper Maria mentioned, and she burst into laughter, even mockingly calling me a poor thing. She reveled in her successful trickery, claiming she duped me into signing her home loan papers under the guise of getting a new car. I allowed her to revel in her moment of triumph for a brief moment before revealing that I was well aware of her deception. Even if I hadn't known Maria's intention, I would have figured it out the day I signed. After all, everything on the document was plainly written in English. I couldn't help but wonder how she planned to get my signature without me reading the document first. Opting for a more dignified response, I remained calm despite her attempts to provoke a reaction. To spoil her celebratory mood, I challenged Maria to translate a line from the document she held. Initially hesitant, she complied after sensing my determination. The first line revealed my awareness. I am attempting to deceive my daughter-in-law, but I've been busted because she already knows. As she read out the damning line, Maria's eyes widened in anger. Without wasting time, she erupted into a tirade, hurling insults and regretting her son's marriage to me. Her hurtful words cut deep, and I couldn't stand being humiliated in front of the guests. I fired back, asserting my innocence and refusing to be blamed for her deceptive actions. I harbored no regrets for exposing the truth, considering it a necessary lesson for Maria. Maria understood that convincing me to sign her home loan papers would be a challenge. Resorting to deception, she tricked me into signing them, thinking it was a clever move on her part. Unfortunately, this maneuver led to significant tension between Bob and me. Maria, likely playing the victim, must have informed Bob that I insulted and humiliated her in front of her friends. It has been a week, and Bob refuses to answer my calls or respond to messages. The frustrating part is that he hasn't heard my side of the story, and despite repeated attempts, all my calls go straight to voicemail. He was supposed to return home last weekend, but he hasn't, and there's been no communication. Despite feeling regretful about the strange situation with Bob, I stand by my decision not to regret exposing Maria's deception. The question I have is whether I am in the wrong for outsmarting Maria and responding assertively to her actions. Despite her being my mother-in-law and an elder, I couldn't let her manipulate the situation. I'm eager to hear your comments. Update number 1. I appreciate the comments on my original post. It hasn't been easy since last week when Bob returned home with an attitude. Despite my attempts to explain everything, he insists that it was wrong of me to humiliate his mother. He seems to overlook the fact that his mom tried to deceive me into signing her home loan papers. Bob is so angry that he believes I should have called him when I discovered Maria's intentions. I haven't spoken to or visited Maria since then, still shocked at how she treated me despite all I did for her. The most frustrating part is that Bob is now threatening divorce if I don't apologize to Maria. In a heated argument 2 days ago, he left the house in the morning with some belongings. Later that evening, I discovered he was at his mother's house with a woman from his past, boldly posting pictures on Facebook. They appeared to be enjoying themselves while I dealt with loneliness. I expected Bob to understand the situation from my perspective and acknowledge his mother's wrongdoing. He hasn't spoken to her or condemned her actions, and for 2 days, Bob has been elusive since expressing that he'd rather lose me than let a woman jeopardize his relationship with his parents. It's painful to hear Bob now perceive me as a homewrecker, especially when he knows the genuine reasons behind my compassionate treatment of his mother. I had confided in him about my past with my own mom, and he used that vulnerability against me, hurling insults and uttering things I never expected from him. Even if I were to apologize to Maria for exposing her deceit, the dynamics between us can never return to how they used to be. I can't envision myself getting along with her or any of Bob's family members ever again. While those who know me often describe me as kind and soft, I'm contemplating a change. I don't want to be perceived as the soft, weak jade any longer. But the dilemma lies in whether being rude to Maria is reason enough for Bob to consider divorce. I love Bob deeply and don't want to lose him. Please advise me on what course of action I should take. Although Bob sounded serious, part of me wonders if he's bluffing, or is this an ominous sign of something worse? Update number 2. Following some suggestions to talk to Bob, I decided to confront him at his mother's house. To my surprise, Lisa, Bob's ex-girlfriend, was there with him and his parents, evident from their laughter within. Bob was furious at my unexpected appearance, asserting that I was no longer welcome there. In an attempt to salvage our relationship, he demanded that I apologize to his mother. Desperate to make things work and missing Bob immensely, I reluctantly apologized to Maria. However, it wasn't heartfelt, and Maria insisted on writing an apology for me to read. To my shock, the apology Maria penned contained demeaning content, prompting an immediate change of heart. I walked out of the house, and Maria, Bob, and Lisa laughed as I left. Betrayed and hurt, I texted Bob about my readiness for divorce and contacted a divorce lawyer. Instead of begging or clarifying, Bob's response was a simple okay. Before meeting Maria, Bob had mentioned that Maria held affection for Lisa, but they had ended things because he felt Lisa wasn't the one for him. Reflecting on my actions, I realized how foolish I had been. Despite suspicions, I had often dismissed the thought of Bob cheating on me. He always took calls from his parents in my presence, but for other calls, he would excuse himself to answer outside. In hindsight, there were signs of a possible affair, but I had brushed them aside, not wanting to succumb to baseless assumptions that could ruin a marriage. I refrained from jumping to conclusions until I was certain about Bob's actions. Even though Bob wasn't cheating, taking Lisa to his mother's house felt like a direct insult. In my view, divorce seems to be the best resolution, and I wish there was a way to teach Maria a lesson, but I'll let her be. Update number 3. I want to express my gratitude to all of you for your invaluable support. Among the numerous comments, the suggestion that stood out was to make Maria pay back all the money she borrowed. After gathering proof, I decided to sue her. Before filing the case, I messaged her, demanding repayment, but she didn't respond. I also texted Bob, and his dismissive response pushed me to proceed with the legal action. I filed the case and waited for Maria to be served. The sum she owed me exceeded $3,500, and I had evidence in the form of text messages. Maria's reaction upon being served was furious. She bombarded my phone with calls. I deliberately avoided answering. Bob and his father also reached out, suggesting an out-of-court settlement, and Bob professed his love. Disgusted, I blocked him, but he persisted with another number. The day of the court hearing arrived, and Maria showed up with her entire family, including Bob and his father as witnesses. They glared at me while the judge questioned me. I explained myself, but to my surprise, Maria denied borrowing any money and even claimed she used to borrow from Bob, not me. I presented the printed messages to the judge, but Maria laughed, dismissing them as potentially forged. Fortunately, the detailed content of the messages, mentioning disability amounts and other specifics, convinced the judge. The court ruled in my favor, ordering Maria to repay the $3,750. This experience has taught me not to love someone more than they love me. I'm relieved to have my money back and can start anew. Dragging Maria to court was a satisfying experience. She had avoided bringing up the money after resuming work, and I hadn't asked for it, given my initial intention of helping her out of love. However, realizing the lack of genuine affection from Maria and her family, I chose to stand up for myself. Thank you all for your support. I've become stronger, wiser, and smarter because of you. Regarding the divorce, as soon as the papers are ready, I'll be officially ending things with Bob. You guys are the best, and I'm grateful for the recovery of nearly $4,000. I'd love to hear your stories about helping in-laws that backfired in the comments section below. I narrate stories like this every day, covering in-law dramas, inheritance disputes, and wedding fiascos. If you want more videos, hit the subscribe button. It greatly supports the channel. Thank you, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Remember, it's cool to be kind. See you. My father passed away, leaving behind some belongings that I thought of sharing with my husband. However, the response I received from him left me in disbelief. Despite being married, my husband declared that the money I inherited from my father wasn't mine but his. I'm a 32-year-old female, and my relationship with Benjamin began during my third year of college. My first boyfriend, Charles, was financially irresponsible, spending recklessly on alcohol even though he still received an allowance from his parents. After enduring 6 months of frustration with Charles, I ended the relationship. The contrast was stark when I met Benjamin, an accountant with a calculated and intelligent demeanor. Although he did the bare minimum in terms of taking me out and buying gifts during our college days, I appreciated the attention. Benjamin and I started dating right after college, and our relationship progressed quickly. He was good-looking, charismatic, and I considered myself fortunate to have him. Despite his minimal efforts in the early days, I didn't mind as long as I felt valued. Our marriage happened when I was 26, and we were in a long-distance relationship at the time. Benjamin proposed after returning from a visit with his family in Colorado, expressing that he couldn't see himself with anyone else. Excitement overwhelmed me, but my mother, for some inexplicable reason, had never approved of Benjamin. Despite my dad liking him, my mother warned me against marrying him, expressing a bad feeling about the union. Disregarding her concerns, I proceeded with the marriage. Initially, our marriage was fine. I was working as a secretary, but a workplace disagreement led me to quit. Benjamin, who provided for our essentials, supported my decision. However, things took a turn when I asked for money to buy a dress, and he dismissed my request, claiming I had enough clothes. As the frustration grew after repeated rejections, I turned to my parents for advice. While my dad suggested understanding, my mom was visibly upset. She decided to call Benjamin, and that marked the onset of the first serious argument we had at home. Benjamin accused me of being selfish, claiming that I'd only thought about money. I defended myself, questioning what was wrong with wanting a few things for myself. The heated exchange led us to sleep in separate rooms. Frustrated, I resolved to start working again and began searching for job listings the next day. Unfortunately, I couldn't secure anything decent. The only job that seemed worthwhile was not close by, and despite attending a few interviews, I received no calls. Accepting my fate, I began to feel like a student again as my parents started sending me money. For a while, I managed to be content, pushing away the pain of knowing that my husband wouldn't provide for me. I took care of bills whenever possible, trying to contribute to the household. However, when my dad fell ill, I felt guilty taking money from my parents, so my allowance was halted. This was about 8 months ago. I refrained from asking Benjamin for money, visiting my parents whenever I could. My dad's health deteriorated, and my mom struggled with managing both his care and the bills. I suggested staying over since I was unemployed, but Benjamin objected, fearing it would cause problems in our marriage. In desperation, I found the solution through a friend, Julie. 4 months ago, I lent her some money from my father, and she started a multi-purpose business. Handling the finances, I also received a reasonable portion of the monthly earnings, contributing to my dad's treatment. Whether Benjamin knows about this, I'm uncertain as I didn't inform him. At this point, all I want is for my dad to recover. In an update, I shared the difficulty of overcoming my father's recent death. He passed away over 3 weeks ago, and I was devastated. My mom came to stay with me, and even Benjamin, whom I thought had become emotionless, showed sympathy and care. He comforted my mom, often going above and beyond to get whatever we needed. This sparked a renewed faith in my marriage, suggesting that perhaps Benjamin had reasons for his previous behavior. As unbelievable as it may sound, my mom moved out a week ago. Later on, I accompanied my mom, and my dad's lawyer visited. That's when I learned about the thousands of dollars my dad had kept for me. Apparently, he had set aside the money after hearing my complaints about my husband, wanting to ensure I had a comfortable life. Mom received a substantial share as well. Before leaving my house, my mom advised me to keep this information from Benjamin. It puzzled me because I thought she was starting to like him, but I suppose I'll never truly understand. Considering expanding my business with Julie, I discussed the idea with her when I got home. She was enthusiastic, but suggested waiting a while since the complex was relatively new. Another notable event was my husband asking me out on a date upon returning home. Initially, I thought he was joking, as Benjamin rarely engaged in humor, especially since we got married. It turned out to be a pleasant change, and we enjoyed our dinner. Post-dinner talks centered around how my mom and I were coping. Benjamin inquired about my mom's well-being, and I assured him that my dad had taken care to ensure her comfort before his passing. That's when he found out about the money my dad had left me in his will. While I didn't disclose the amount, I saw no reason to hide the fact that my father had left me an inheritance. I spoke to my mom yesterday and shared details about my date with Benjamin. She was shocked, not surprising given the circumstances. She reasoned that his extra care was due to my dad's passing. However, when I mentioned that Benjamin knew about the money left for me, she expressed suspicion. She insisted that Benjamin was after the money my dad left and accused me of being naive. We ended up in a heated argument, with her claiming that Benjamin loved his money more than me. I defended my husband, attributing her dislike for him to her unfounded suspicions. After the phone call, I was in such a bad mood that even Benjamin noticed. When I told him about the argument, he laughed it off, stating that I would never take the money given to me. Before I could exhale in relief, he dropped a bombshell, saying that everything I had was his since we were married. He gave me a casual kiss on the cheek and fell asleep, leaving me restless and confused. Now, he wants to discuss the money, jokingly offering free advice on how not to spend it all. As my husband left the house, promising to see me in the evening, the dread I felt from the previous night intensified. I began to realize that my mom might have been onto something, and I should have heeded her advice to keep my mouth shut. The notion that his is mine because we're married was nothing but nonsense. While I acknowledge my mistake in sharing everything with Benjamin, it's a blunder I won't repeat. Update number 2. My dad left money behind, and it turns out Benjamin was truly after it. How did everyone else see this but me? Even Julie figured it out when I confided in her 2 weeks ago. Unable to discuss it with my mom due to strained relations, I didn't want to admit she was right about Benjamin. It wasn't an ego thing. I just didn't want to hear her suggest divorce again. Julie, a single mother, sympathized but had no clear advice. Eventually, I mustered the courage to discuss my fears with Benjamin, hoping for understanding. Unfortunately, it only led to a heated argument. I explained that the money left by my father was mine to use as I saw fit. But Benjamin asserted that, as a married couple, everything should be shared. When I pressed him on what he had shared between us, he argued that he covered all household expenses without consulting me. I countered that it was his responsibility, and he could have communicated if he needed money. In his eyes, I became the villain, and he ominously warned me of regret. The situation worsened as Benjamin stopped eating at home, dismissing my cooking, and presented me with bills to pay. When I resisted, he threatened not to take responsibility for the consequences. I refused to sleep with him, and 3 days ago, our power was cut off. Benjamin was absent, leaving me bewildered. Desperate, I called him, offering to contribute to the bills. He returned the next morning, and I handed him the money, having stayed with my mom. I confided in Julie, shocked at Benjamin's pettiness. Julie advised me to give him whatever he wanted for the sake of peace in the household. There was a clause, though, leaving me wondering if she subtly suggested filing for divorce. Yesterday, when I asked Benjamin for money for groceries, he refused, claiming I had the means to go to the supermarket. Another fight ensued on the spot. I confronted Benjamin, telling him he was being unreasonable and petty. In response, he accused me of selfishness, claiming I couldn't see what he had done for me all this time. After a moment of silence, I devised a plan. I informed Benjamin that I would act irresponsibly and selfishly, as he alleged I was, until he ceased his behavior. The next morning, Benjamin questioned why I hadn't ironed his work shirts. I replied that they weren't mine, and he had hands to do it himself. He laughed, called me wicked, and decided to go to the laundromat. My heart broke as he left the house. Eventually, I sought solace in my mother, sharing everything with her. As I suspected, she concluded that my marriage was falling apart and suggested filing for divorce. I stayed with her, crying my eyes out. I recently spoke with Benjamin, informing him that I wasn't feeling well and needed to stay with my mother temporarily. In response, he threatened divorce, claiming no use for a selfish wife, demanding I return home ASAP. Despite the white lie, I wonder if my actions were wrong. With both Benjamin and my mom seemingly in agreement, is this truly the end of my marriage? I'm at a loss for what to do. Update number 3. I decided to file for divorce before heading home. When I showed Benjamin the divorce papers, he seemed shocked. He insisted that divorce was just a threat, and he didn't really want it. Despite my skepticism, he begged me not to proceed with the divorce. After much contemplation, I agreed to give our marriage another chance. However, I made it clear that we needed to talk and set some terms. After a few days, Benjamin finally agreed to a discussion. I told him to resume paying bills and eating at home, and I committed to taking care of the house. I also informed him that I wouldn't ask for money unless it was for groceries or mutual benefits. Despite my reservations, I was willing to make it work. Benjamin claimed he was fine with the agreement, and I moved back into our bedroom. Initially awkward, things eventually normalized. Suddenly, 2 weeks ago, Benjamin changed his stance. I woke up to find him staring at me. When I asked what was wrong, he claimed our earlier agreement wasn't reasonable. Curious, I asked if he meant work, and he revealed he was referring to the money. Benjamin finally disclosed that he was aware of my business, but refrained from mentioning it because I stopped bothering him with trivial requests. He emphasized that he couldn't be the sole contributor to bills now that I had a source of income and likely more money than he did. Surprisingly, it made sense to me. I had unknowingly adopted his habit of keeping money to myself. We agreed to split the bills 50-50, and things returned to normal. 3 days ago, Julie informed me about a workplace accident and a fire in the Eastern Complex. After calculating the costs, I realized I needed a significant sum of money to cover damages and hospital bills for injured employees. Julie, dealing with her own responsibilities, couldn't offer much help. Despite my initial decision to handle it alone, Benjamin confronted me after dinner, revealing he needed money to pay off a loan he had applied for years ago. Still reeling from the calculations, I told Benjamin it wasn't a good time. He insisted, talking about more money, but my focus was on the damages. I asked for time to think, retreated to lie down, and Benjamin followed me into the bedroom. When I explained the situation, he told me to forget about the complex and give him the money urgently. It seemed absurd, and I asked for time to consider. The next morning, Benjamin accused me of being selfish again. I pleaded for more time, but he claimed he had offered a solution I refused. I contemplated paying off his loan and covering damages, but that would hinder my plans to start something new. Julie suggested paying her back gradually, but Benjamin threatened divorce again. He disclosed taking out a loan to help his brother and revealed his own debt, stemming from funds borrowed to buy our current house. Shocked, I decided to prioritize Benjamin and help him, putting the business on hold. Update number 4. I'm now divorced. It took time, but I discovered Benjamin had lied about his brother's situation. On a whim, I called John, Benjamin's brother, offering help. Confused, John didn't even recognize the caller. It turned out that Benjamin had deceived me. When I inquired about the real situation, Benjamin confessed that he had lost his job early in the year and was relying on a loan that was almost depleted. With almost no income, he needed to repay the loan in a few months. It was disheartening to witness Benjamin speak, and for the first time, I saw a defeated look on his face. When I questioned why he hadn't trusted me enough to share the truth, he claimed it wasn't necessary for me to know the details. Concerned about our financial situation, I suggested downsizing to a smaller home, but Benjamin reacted angrily. He questioned why I found it difficult to give him money to cover his debt when he had taken care of me for so many years. I found his statement amusing because even in the early stages of our marriage, I had taken care of myself. I dressed and bought necessities, paying bills after my parents began sending me money monthly. Now, with a substantial sum to my name, I continued paying bills and looking after myself. I recounted all these financial moves to him, excluding details about the business. When Benjamin threatened divorce, I welcomed it, tired of the secrets, lies, and the pain of being in a marriage devoid of love. I packed my belongings and left the house, seeking refuge with my mother. I informed Julie that I would be taking a break for some time, and she understood. Benjamin offered no apology this time, making my decision to divorce him easier. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks ago. I am now focusing on self-care and ensuring the success of the business. While I don't know how Benjamin is faring, I do know he no longer lives in our former home, and I haven't seen or heard from him. It seems like the end of my relationship with my husband. It will take time, but I'm making an effort to leave the past behind. As we conclude this story, we learn that the narrator has reached a breaking point with Benjamin, deciding to cut ties and prioritize her own well-being. The audience is encouraged to share their thoughts on the story and any similar experiences in the comments section. The narrator's journey involves moving on from a toxic relationship and focusing on personal and professional growth. I'd like to share my experience dealing with a challenging situation involving my mother-in-law, Lily. I must preface this by acknowledging that this topic might be sensitive for some, and I apologize if it offends anyone. Lily has exhibited clear signs of racism, particularly towards individuals with a different skin color than hers. Unfortunately, this has become evident in her treatment of me, her daughter-in-law. To provide some background, I am a 28-year-old woman married to my long-term boyfriend, Zachary, whom I met during our post-graduation at a management college. I am of Indian origin but was born and raised in Boston, while Zach is a white American. Ethnicity became a concern when Zach and I got serious about our relationship. Lily, my mother-in-law, had reservations about our union due to this difference. Despite her initial attempts to appear accepting, her true feelings of disdain were palpable. She would make comments about my ethnicity, emphasizing that it was the color of my skin that bothered her. Initially, during our dating phase, she seemed less aggressive about her disapproval. However, as the years passed and she witnessed our commitment to each other, her discomfort grew. She would openly address me using derogatory terms, even in the presence of Zach. This negativity escalated when Zach began discussing our future together. Lily's animosity extended beyond verbal remarks to mocking me directly, criticizing everything from my choice of clothing to personal habits. Despite being as American as she is, she consistently categorized white Americans as us and we, while referring to people of color as they. Eventually, Zach reached a point where he stopped visiting his family during festivities and special occasions due to Lily's behavior. While I valued family connections, I couldn't be happy with Zach cutting ties, as I cherished my own family deeply. Initially hesitant about marrying into a family where I felt unwelcome, Zach helped me understand the importance of setting boundaries and ensuring that our choices were respected. Even though my parents shared my concerns, Zach's father emerged as a supportive figure, assuring my parents that I would be loved and respected in the family. Despite Lily's disapproval, Zach's father emphasized that the decision to marry someone should be his, urging her to respect his choices and back off. I anticipated that she would cause a disruption at my wedding, but thankfully, everything went smoothly. Prior to the event, I was quite stressed, but my father and mother-in-law assured me they would handle her, and they did. She behaved courteously with my parents and guests, leading me to believe she had moved beyond my skin color and accepted me. To my surprise, however, she seemed stuck on that issue. In an effort to minimize interaction with her, we distanced ourselves. Nevertheless, my father-in-law continued to visit regularly, and I developed a strong bond with him. Lily, on the other hand, proved to be persistent. Despite our decision to stop visiting her, she started showing up at our house unannounced. Eventually, we felt obligated to host her, considering she was Zach's mother, and we couldn't be rude. What bothers me most is that every time she visits, she inquires about our family planning. I tried evading the question, claiming we haven't thought about it yet, but her response is always a vague good. I'm unsure whether she wants us to have children or not, and it's become increasingly difficult to interpret her intentions. I approached Zach about this, but he dismissed it, insisting she's merely curious. The problem is she never brings up the topic in front of him, making it challenging to convey the discomfort I feel from her body language and tone. It's more than just a general inquiry, and I find it unsettling. Recently, during her visit, I caught her searching through my bedside table drawer. It was a bizarre and creepy incident. I was occupied with a client call and informed her it would take about 45 minutes. She seemed fine with it. But when I later discovered the call had ended prematurely, I went to look for her. She had disappeared. Upon returning to the study to retrieve my phone, I heard scrambling noises from my bedroom. Zach wasn't home at the time, and upon entering the room, I found Lily near my bedside table, frantically searching through the drawer. Startled by my presence, she claimed to be looking for a vaporizer due to a cold. I offered her one, but she didn't use it, insisting she would check with my doctor later. Strangely, she didn't exhibit any signs of illness during her stay, making me recall previous instances where I had noticed my closet tampered with and my belongings displaced. Until now, I hadn't paid much attention to those occurrences. Looking back, I can't ignore the fact that during most of Lily's visits, she was at my house. It seems too frequent to be a mere coincidence. The problem is, while it's concerning, I can't bring myself to tell Zach. It's not that he wouldn't understand, but to him, it doesn't seem creepy that his mother was searching for a vaporizer in my drawer. I lack enough evidence to prove my observations, and I'm unclear about what she's even up to. Any advice on how to deal with this? Do you foresee anything? I just want to be alert before I'm caught off guard. Update number 1. Hey everyone, thanks for helping me break down Lily's intentions. If it weren't for you guys, I would have taken forever to figure out what she's up to. I made a list of all the possible things Lily could be behind, and the top assumption that made the most sense was a baby. I connected the dots, considering how she used to ask about having children and then started searching through my bag, closet, and drawer. She must be checking if we use protection, finding them in any of these places, and being reassured that we're not planning children yet. I know it's common for grandparents to expect grandchildren, but in that case, she could have asked us to plan instead of sneaking around. These were my assumptions, and as soon as you suggested it, I started playing around with her to confirm my doubts. I hid my pills and his protection in a different place, not accessible to her. I was careful with my bag and closet when she visited my home. Also, I started playing with my words while talking to her. The next time she asked if we were planning a baby, I blushed and said, "Yeah, we're kind of planning." The expected reaction should have been a positive one, but hers was, "No way, it's too early. You guys should enjoy your life first. The baby can wait." I've never heard a mother-in-law say this. It wasn't even advice, it was more of an instruction. Currently, I'm just enjoying this drama, teasing her that we're planning for a baby and relishing her reaction. I know it's a concern that she doesn't want us to have a baby, and I don't know why. Or maybe I do. I'll probably update you when I have more details about her intentions. This was just a quick update for everyone to have a good laugh. Thanks to those who have been checking on my last post. Update number 2. Hey guys, this is going to be a longer one. I finally figured out Lily's intention behind all these creepy activities. After a month of teasing her that we were planning for a baby, she finally spoke out. One day, she visited us, and Zach was also home. We were 3 sitting together. I said, "Zach, do you know Mom had been insisting me not to have children?" Now, Zach was like, "What?" Lily also turned pale. Zach asked her why she would suggest that, and she ran short of words. I said, Mom thinks that we should enjoy our life more and children would just destroy our peace and privacy. Mind you, Zach loves children. It was I who was pushing the plan of the baby to the next year. Zach wanted it now. Lily tried to cover up and say, yes, I was suggesting it for your own well-being. Enjoy your youth. Zach said he had enjoyed enough, and now he wanted a baby. You know, I could have informed Zach about it earlier, but the joy of having a face-to-face confrontation was too tempting. It led to a heated argument between Zach and Lily, escalating to the point where she turned aggressive. Lily asserted that if we truly wanted to have a baby, we should opt for traditional surrogacy. She justified this suggestion by claiming that pregnancy is difficult for women, citing her business and career as factors that would be adversely affected. According to her, not only would my work be impacted, but Zach's business would also suffer because he would have to take care of me. She insisted that we could afford surrogacy and encouraged us to go for it. I was perplexed. I knew she couldn't be genuinely kind and considerate. Her suggestion of surrogacy wasn't about our work and well-being. Zach, in response, remained calm, agreeing to consider the idea. Lily, thinking that we were immediately planning for a baby, showed up a few days later. This time, she deliberately checked Zach's availability, claiming she had something important to discuss. To my surprise, she brought a list of top places providing surrogacy facilities and had shortlisted women offering surrogacy. As if that wasn't enough, she also had a list of female egg donors, shortlisting two with the best genetic features. Zach and I were taken aback. I used a punching bag to calm my nerves, while Zach lost his temper, yelling at her for being nosy in our lives. He firmly stated that it wasn't her business to interfere in our lives. Lily insisted that her motive was well-intentioned, but I continued to probe. I questioned the need for an egg donor when I was fertile enough. Finally, she blurted out, "Your egg is going to have a brown baby. I cannot let you guys color our genes." The outrageousness of her statement left us in shock. Zach would have resorted to physical confrontation if she wasn't his mother. Lily stormed out, giving me a look that suggested I had ruined her relationship with Zach. I didn't care. I had to bring this to Zach's notice. A few days later, she sent a sorry card to Zach, but he refused to speak to her. Despite her attempts to mend the relationship, he remained firm. She even visited his office with flowers, but Zach did not forgive her. She's now trying to fix her relationship with Zach by being extra sweet to me, but she hasn't apologized to me. In reality, she had belittled and offended me. Fortunately, Zach defended me so firmly that I didn't need to intervene. I hope she learns her lesson and refrains from interfering in our personal life. I'll keep you updated if anything develops. Update number 3, guys. Lily doesn't seem to have learned her lesson. I apologize for not updating this often due to my hectic schedule, but I appreciate the supportive space here. I feel safe sharing these events with you. Following the confrontation, Zach ceased communication with his mom. Despite her attempts to reach out, he remained silent. Lily resorted to sobbing to my father-in-law, expressing remorse for her words and expressing a desire to mend everything. My father-in-law, a principled family man, holds significant respect from all of us. He reached out to Zach, urging him to forgive Lily. Zach, influenced by his father's values, forgave his mother but established a firm boundary against her interference in our lives. Lily pledged not to meddle, expressing guilt and the desire to spend time with us to cope. Although Zach and I spent minimal time at home due to work, parties, or vacations, we allowed Lily to stay. Amid discussions about children, Zach and I decided to start planning for a baby immediately. Despite our efforts, my cycles came and went with no positive results after 3 or 4 cycles of trying. Concerned, we consulted a doctor, repeating tests for genetic issues and psychological barriers, but nothing surfaced. The doctor advised us to keep trying for at least a year. A visit to a fertility counselor revealed the challenges some women face after years of trying, providing a glimmer of hope. While Lily lived with us, She did not intrude, and I kept the fertility struggles from her, attributing my stress to work. As therapy proved ineffective, I stumbled upon something suspicious: Lily tampering with my morning juice. I witnessed it and confirmed my suspicion with my maid's involvement. I promptly disposed of the juice and realized that the lack of side effects indicated a connection to my birth control pills. I refrained from eating or drinking anything separately and considered revealing this to Zach. Lacking evidence, I consulted a doctor friend who suggested avoiding revenge at that point, and instead recommended distancing myself from Lily. She requested me to assure Lily that I was opting for traditional surrogacy due to my alleged inability to produce healthy eggs. I insisted on a written report, but she claimed she couldn't risk her career. Despite this, she created a fake report under her name and location, stating that I was not fertile enough to produce eggs. Returning home, I showed it to Lily, feigning tears and distress. I conveyed that the doctor suggested surrogacy, and she appeared delighted. I asked her not to inform Zach because he wouldn't agree to using someone else's genes for our baby. Making her my ally, we both started looking for doctors and surrogate mothers. Lily, however, urged me to continue the search as she had to return to her husband. She insisted on finding gorgeous white women as donors. Once she left, I confronted the maid about the birth control pill incident. Tearfully, she confessed to Lily's instructions, but I recorded her admission. I didn't fire her because she was bribed by Lily, threatening to report her to the police if she revealed this to Lily. Now that Lily's not around, I'm hoping to conceive naturally. I'll update you when I have time. Thanks for checking in. Update number 4, starting with good news. We're expecting twins in February. I know it's a late update. Blame my pregnancy exhaustion. Conceiving on the first cycle after Lily left, Zach and I were overjoyed upon seeing the positive results. Our happiness doubled upon seeing our twins on the ultrasound. Insisting on keeping the pregnancy a secret until the first trimester was over, I explained to Zach about Lily's actions. I played the recorded confession for him, and he was furious but chose not to fire the maid. We minimized conversations with Lily, occasionally updating her on our surrogacy progress, claiming we had put a halt on it. About a month ago, it was Lily and father-in-law's 30th anniversary, and they organized a huge celebration. I proposed using the occasion to announce our pregnancy, as I was about to complete the 3rd month. After the cake cutting, during the toasts, Zach and I announced our family of 2 was soon becoming a family of 4, presenting 3D images of our twins. People showered us with love and blessings. Lily assumed we were pregnant through surrogacy, so her reaction was subdued. Later, she asked why I hadn't informed her about the surrogacy. I suggested discussing it after the party, and once the celebration ended, we gathered as close family members. Lily questioned why I wasn't drinking and demanded to see a picture of the egg donor to examine her facial features. In response, I tightened my dress to reveal my tiny baby bump. Lily, taken aback, lost her composure, yelling and hurling insults at me. Zach intervened, urging her to stop, but she proceeded to disclose all our conversations about infertility and surrogacy. Standing there quietly, I felt the weight of her revelations. Zach played the confession recording for everyone, leaving my father-in-law furious to learn about Lily's malicious actions to prevent my pregnancy. In her defense, Lily expressed her reluctance to see a brown child in her family, causing an uproar among Zach's extended family. Shouting and yelling ensued, primarily between Lily and the others present, including Zach's uncle, brother-in-law, and his wife. Lily continued making outrageous statements, and I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. My father-in-law sternly warned Lily that if she spoke one more word against me, he would divorce her. Zach asserted that she had done enough harm and banned her from our home and future children. Lily left the house, portraying herself as the victim, claiming nobody understood her. My father-in-law and others consoled and apologized to me for Lily's behavior. Despite his apologies, my father-in-law expressed regret for failing to keep Lily in check. Zach and I decided to take a short trip to help me cope with Lily's wrath and the impact on my mental state due to pregnancy hormones. During the trip, I cried uncontrollably, but it eventually aided in my emotional recovery. Despite Lily's attempts to contact Zach and apologize, he remained adamant about not allowing her in during the pregnancy phase. We couldn't trust her, fearing she might disturb me mentally. I wanted to focus on being happy and enjoying my pregnancy. Thank you all for the love and blessings. Please wish me a healthy pregnancy. I'm not surprised that the mother-in-law was cut off towards the end of the story, and the father-in-law gave a strict warning. If she continued with her behavior, he would divorce her. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. Feel free to share your comments below. Thank you for your support, and I hope you have a fantastic day. My parents are pushing me to shoulder the blame for my sister, but that's a line I won't cross. Throughout my life, I've meticulously maintained the image of the perfect child, and I refuse to compromise that now. Hey, everyone, how's it going? This platform is quite new to me, but I hope you can grasp the emotions I'm trying to convey and understand the turmoil I'm experiencing. Being a guy in society, there's this unspoken expectation that I shouldn't express emotions or seek support. It's as if I'm supposed to be this stoic figure, always shielding those around me. Initially, I thought this was a universal perspective on how guys should be. But as I grew older, I realized it was more of a medieval mindset ingrained in my family. Let me provide a brief background. My parents never wanted me. To this day, they still don't. I spent my life hearing how they had hoped for a daughter, and my arrival as their firstborn son left them devastated. They even contemplated giving me up for adoption, not wanting the hassle of handling a boy. You might think this is an exaggeration, but I'm living proof that such situations exist. 3 years later, my sister Kate was born. After years of yearning for a daughter, they finally got what they wanted. It was a day filled with celebration, cakes, laughter, everything that was absent at my birth. As we grew older, my parents started favoring her over me. I became her designated protector, as if I were her bodyguard rather than her brother. I tried desperately to gain my parents' approval. Good grades, participation in sports and clubs, internships, I did it all, hoping they would treat me like their son. But it never happened. Throughout my life, I've internalized the belief that I hold no value, and the only person who matters is my sister. Kate, on the other hand, has been spoiled her entire life. Anything she desired, a simple request, and my parents would fulfill it. We weren't exceptionally rich, but the disparity was glaring. While she received everything on a silver platter, I had to beg for even basic necessities for school. It was an injustice, acknowledged by everyone, including my extended family, but no one dared to confront my parents. It's like they fear the same mistreatment if they speak up. To make matters worse, both my parents are the eldest siblings in their respective families, amplifying the power dynamic. Anyway, things recently took a sharp turn for the worse. Let me fill you in on the details. You all know about the hype surrounding the new iPhone, right? It's practically the only topic of conversation these days. So my sister, being the spoiled one she is, had her heart set on it. However, for the first time in history, my parents dropped the bomb that they couldn't get it for her. Kate has been pushing boundaries lately, sneaking out with her boyfriend in the middle of the night, and her academic performance was on the edge of disaster this semester. This was the perfect opportunity for my parents to rein her in and make her prove her responsibility before rewarding her with the latest iPhone. Kate didn't take the news well at all. She cried for almost an hour, pleading with my parents to reconsider. Even though she already had the previous model, she still yearned for the newest one. My parents, being super soft for Kate, took her to her favorite restaurant to cheer her up. They invited me to join them, but the disdain on Kate's face made me decline. She treats me like a disease, avoiding me as much as possible. Even her favorite meal at her beloved restaurant couldn't satisfy her, and she continued to beg for the new iPhone. Then, out of nowhere, she stopped. Not a single word about the phone for an entire week. I found it suspicious and tried to tell my parents, but they got mad, insisting that she had learned her lesson and matured. It infuriated me, but I kept quiet. And here comes the biggest plot twist you'll ever hear. A week later, she waltzed in with the new iPhone in her hand, the seal unbroken. We were baffled because there was no way she saved enough from her job, and none of us gave her money. As it turned out, she stole the money, or technically, items worth a lot of money. For context, my Aunt Sheila and Uncle Peter are super rich. They own multiple cars, their own house, and they're decked out in designer brands for everything. They go on lavish holidays every summer. Despite their wealth, they're surprisingly humble. Their daughter, Amelia, is close to me, and she's the only one who truly understands me, even though she's not going through the same struggles. She's genuinely nice and always there for me. Whenever I needed someone to lean on, Amelia has been the sister I wish I had. She got married around 3 years ago, and despite the almost 7-year age gap, we still get along exceptionally well. Recently, Amelia held her baby shower at her lavish home. Even though she's no longer under her parents' supervision, her husband and she maintain a lifestyle comparable to what Amelia had while growing up. Their baby shower took place about 2 weeks ago. Here's where things took a turn. Katie, my sister, made a significant mistake during the baby shower. She stole Amelia's belongings. Amelia, always trusting to a fault, didn't notice it at the time. I observed Katie repeatedly disappearing and returning looking jittery, with her eyes darting around nervously. Now, knowing that she was in the process of stealing, her behavior makes more sense. But back then, I was confused and didn't confront her since I knew she'd push me away. The truth unfolded a few days ago when Kate came home in a frenzy, crying her eyes out. It was late at night, and her erratic behavior startled everyone. When questioned, Kate confessed to stealing Gucci, Chanel, Louis Vuitton, and even a Hermes Birkin bag from Amelia's closet during the baby shower. We were all shocked, unable to comprehend why she'd resort to stealing when our financial situation didn't warrant it. Her reason: she desperately wanted the new iPhone, and since Dad wouldn't get it for her, she decided to take matters into her own hands. Kate explained her elaborate plan. She took one bag at a time, concealing it under her dress, and then walked to the garage, where she stashed them in our car trunk. It took around 10 attempts before she managed to pilfer everything she wanted. Not only did she steal expensive bags, but she also took Amelia's jewelry from high-end brands like Dior and Cartier. My parents were devastated. Kate was in tears, and I sat in the corner of the living room contemplating how she could do such a thing. Initially, I thought about informing Amelia to put Kate in her place, but the fear of being disowned by my family held me back. What truly hurt was realizing that my own family could do this to me. When Kate began panicking about potential discoveries, we attempted to convince and reassure her that no one would find out if she kept quiet. However, her confession came when she noticed a CCTV camera right outside the garage door, the same route she took to reach the car. If Amelia noticed her missing items, the logical step would be to check the cameras. Kate was in a bind, and my heart felt a slight satisfaction because I hoped she would learn a lesson. Unfortunately, my parents dumped the entire chaos on my plate. After about 30 minutes of her crying and our attempts to reassure her, my dad decided he had enough. He told Kate to calm down so he could think, but I knew I was in trouble when his gaze shifted towards me. I could sense that he planned to use me to save Kate and harm me in the process. He stared at me before opening his mouth, confirming my role as the scapegoat. His plan was for me to take the blame for the entire situation if anyone traced the stolen items back to Kate. I found this absurd because my family already didn't value me, and now Dad wanted me to further degrade myself. He expected me to tell everyone that I forced Kate to steal from Amelia for my own gain. I resisted because, first of all, Amelia would never believe it, and secondly, I didn't agree with the plan. This disagreement sparked a massive family fight, as they all expected me to comply with their wishes. However, I was my own person and refused to be seen as a thief just to protect Kate's reputation. I fought back, expressing my unwillingness to agree to their plan. They got aggressive, and Kate even started bullying me in front of our parents. They did nothing about it, and she taunted me, claiming nobody cared about me, and it didn't matter how they perceived me because they already thought poorly of me. My parents remained silent, using me as a shield to protect their own child. Filled with anger, I tried to show them how their actions were affecting me, but they didn't seem to care. At that point, I didn't even feel like their son. I was merely a tool to protect their interests. I screamed that I wouldn't agree and left the room, retreating to my living room. For a day, nobody spoke to me, but then the treatment turned harsh. Reluctantly, I agreed one night, storming off to my room. However, over the next few days, I began to wonder if complying would make them like me more. Their terrible behavior continued, confirming my suspicion that they treated me badly because I didn't agree with what they wanted. Hoping that complying with their wishes might earn me their favor, I agreed. Surprisingly, they started treating me more like a human once I voiced my consent. At this moment, I'm somewhat convinced that it might have been a good decision. I'm optimistic that with time, the family will forget about this incident and things will return to normal. However, there's an underlying fear that they might begin treating me like a criminal. My only prayer is that Amelia doesn't notice anything is amiss. In the first update, it became evident that Amelia figured out the situation. She noticed her belongings were missing, prompting her to delve into the matter. Last week, we received a call from Amelia, and her tone sounded angry and devastated. My mom picked up the phone, putting the call on speaker for everyone to hear. It was apparent why Amelia was calling, and I braced myself for the fallout. Uncertain about the decision I had made, I didn't want to be labeled the bad guy by every family member. Yet, changing my mind at this point would lead to chaos, and I'd be blamed for everything in my entire life. When Amelia called, my mom ensured I understood my role. As soon as my mom picked up, Amelia's demanding yet not loud voice filled the air, a stark departure from the quiet and confident Amelia I knew. She immediately began asking where Kate was and insisted on speaking with her to understand the motive behind her actions. Initially, my mom feigned ignorance about the situation, feigning innocence, which only fueled Amelia's anger. Amelia watched the CCTV footage and discovered that Kate had stolen purses and jewelry. Expressing her deep disappointment and demanding Kate return everything, Amelia's revelation made both Mom and Kate nervous. The situation escalated when Mom pointed the blame at me, asserting that I forced Kate to steal because I needed money, including a PlayStation 5 bundle. This accusation caught Amelia off guard, causing her to go silent. Knowing how close we were, she couldn't believe that I would be involved in such wrongdoing. Despite my attempts to deny it, Mom insisted on painting me as the instigator, and I had to say it out loud. The heartbreak in Amelia's voice was palpable. Confirming that I was the one who betrayed Amelia was an unforgettable moment. Though I couldn't see her, I could only imagine how awful she must have felt. To be told that someone you trusted so deeply had betrayed you must have been shocking. She hung up without texting or calling, and I understood her silence. When I confessed to being the one who did it, she attempted to understand the situation, but I couldn't find the words to explain. In the second update, my entire family treated me poorly after the news spread. Amelia and her family shared the details with everyone, and since then, I've been bombarded with calls from concerned family members questioning my actions. Recently, we celebrated my little cousin's birthday, and my uncle insisted that I stay home, fearing I might steal something from their house. The isolation from the family left me close to tears, a feeling many might dismiss because I'm a guy, but I have feelings too. Feeling excluded from the family due to something I didn't do, Kate came to my room. Instead of showing sympathy, she dismissed it, telling me not to make a big deal out of it because everyone would forget in a while. She left without acknowledging the pain I was going through or the sacrifices I've made for her. While preparing for the birthday party, I sat alone in my room, contemplating the unfairness of life. Amelia texted, asking why I did it, but I had no response. Feeling lost and abandoned, I ignored her message. I hoped my family would finally recognize me as their son and feel some love for me after going through this ordeal. Alone at home, I grappled with the harsh reality that my family no longer wanted me around, fearing I would steal. The hurtful words and messages from my family over the years replayed in my head, reminding me that I wasn't the son they wanted. They made it clear that having Kate was the happiest day of their lives, while I was left alone in my room, contemplating whether I wanted to continue this charade. However, I'm not so sure I have the courage to go against them either. What would you do? Update number 3. Okay, here's a bit of an update on the situation. Do you guys remember how I wasn't sure I wanted to do this at all anymore? Well, I stuck to that and reminded myself that if my family doesn't care about me, I can care about myself. Initially, I was really scared of retaliating because even if I did, it wasn't like anybody was going to believe me or stick to my side. Well, that's what I thought. However, a few days ago, Amelia called me and told me she needed to meet with me. I was skeptical about it. Even though we were like siblings, there was still a rumor about me stealing her belongings for selfish reasons. I didn't know what she wanted me to say or do when we met, but I knew I couldn't say no to her, so I went. We met at this little cafe down the street, which used to be our favorite during middle school. Going there with so much going wrong in our lives felt like we were tainting it somehow, but it also felt like we'd get out of there with something going right. When we got there, I realized that things were going to be okay. Amelia did not look angry as I thought she would be. She actually smiled at me when I entered and told me to sit down. She seemed really calm, so I had a bit of hope that she would listen to what I had to say. After the basic pleasantries, she asked me why I was holding up the entire news of whatever was happening. That's when I broke down. I didn't start to cry because I've had it so engraved in me not to do that. But she could see my face and how much this entire thing was affecting me. I saw genuine concern on her face when I looked at her. The concern on her face when she asked me what actually happened is something I'm going to appreciate for my whole life. It made me feel comfortable enough to tell her what exactly happened, why I did what I did. She understood why I did it because she knows I crave my family's validation, and I've been craving it for years. Obviously, if I was going to get an opportunity to try to fight for it, I'd do it. However, she kept frowning as she looked towards me, constantly shaking her head as she heard about everything I've had to manage this week. After I was done, she looked at me with pure concern and told me I was ruining myself for my family. She explained to me that I should not ruin myself just because my family does not appreciate me for who I am. It's not my fault that I was born a guy, so I should not have to pay for it either. Hearing her tell me how unfairly I was being treated and how she's always known that I wasn't capable of doing something as crappy as what they said I did made me feel like she was the only one who truly understood me, the only one who would always be by my side through everything. After that, she told me I should let everyone know the truth and not let my family, especially Kate, walk all over me like that. However, I wasn't sure about that because I didn't know if I had the courage to go against them and still live in the same house as they do. But she told me that she'd be on my side the entire time, and if I needed extra support, she was going to act as a witness and tell everyone what actually happened and how unfairly everybody in my family treated me. At this point, I don't know how I'm going to manage it, but we've come up with a whole plan. I just hope I can convince everyone that it wasn't me and make everybody see the true face of my family. Update number 4. So, we've come up with a plan. Basically, I have to convince my parents to host a dinner that everybody would be invited to so I could tell them what happened and expose my family. Initially, I didn't know how to do that because how was I going to convince them to host something? But then I realized I could make myself look worse in front of them and use that as an advantage. So I told them I wanted to apologize to everybody in the family, even though they knew it was me. I was going to apologize so that they'd feel more pity. It took me a while to convince them to do it. At first, they did not want to go through all the trouble just because I wanted to apologize. They told me to just send a text message to everybody and get it done with. But then I tried to get emotional with them. I told them how I didn't want to do it over text because the entire essence of the apology would be ruined. After an entire day of trying to convince them, they agreed. Amelia and I prepared everything in the 2 days that we had. She got the CCTV footage from her home that showed Kate stealing, and I took a screenshot of all the vile things that she told me and made me cry. Kate knew I hated doing something like that, so she reminded me not to mess it up every time I met someone from the family. The plan was to play all of this on TV in front of everyone so that they would see what the truth was. Instead of me playing it, though, Amelia was going to do it. My parents might get suspicious if I say I want to show the family something, so to be safe, Amelia will do it. Then came the day of the dinner. Before everybody arrived, my family reminded me not to mess it up, and I had to act convinced and tell them I would never want Kate to be in danger or ruin her reputation or anything like that. They seemed pretty convinced, so I think I did a good job of that. Anyways, when everybody came over, we had dinner and talked about some random stuff. During the whole thing, everybody was giving me the cold shoulder, and Amelia had pretended to do the same so nobody would get suspicious. After everybody was done eating, I offered to apologize to everyone. But before I could start, Amelia told me to keep quiet because she had something more important to show. When she opened the TV, the first thing she did was play the video of Kate stealing everything and putting it into the car's trunk. Nobody actually knew this part because Elia's family just said I stole it. So gasps of shock could be heard throughout everybody sitting in the living room. That's when I stood up and announced what had actually happened. I even showed them the text that Kate had sent and finally exposed my entire family. Even Amelia joined in and told everybody how she was a witness to how unfairly and badly my family treated me. After hearing that, everybody started attacking Kate and my parents and expressing their anger for doing something like that. Amelia announced that she was going to sue Kate and ruin her life. My parents looked at me with anger while this entire thing was happening, but my uncle noticed what was happening. Immediately, he called me forward and told me if my parents ever gave me any more trouble, I could come live at his house. Right now, I'm actually at his house because my parents seem too angry and anxious to ever be nice to me again. I'm just hoping they calm down enough, or else I'll just have to figure out a way to move out. Even then, I'm grateful Amelia took my side and helped me expose my family because I've never felt more relieved than I am right now. I don't know why the family would ever want me to go ahead and take all the blame because that is enabling the sister who was a thief, toxic, rotten, manipulative, you name it, that's what she was. I want to shout out to Amelia, though, because without Amelia, who knows how this story would have ended. I want to know your thoughts on it, guys. If you were in Oka's position, how would you go about handling this? Drop your comments down below in the comment section. My name's Mr. Reddit. I narrate stories every single day. So if you guys want to be a part of these daily drama stories, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow. But do remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.